A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on a Wednesday night. Thank you all for joining me. Kind of last-minute decision to do this, but I hope it doesn't interfere with the darts, because I only realised about half an hour ago that the darts was on. I don't know. I haven't watched darts for a very long time. But anyway, thank you all for joining. I hope you've had a good Christmas. I hope you've all had a good New Year and saw the new year in with a bang. And, then we went on to watch the football on Tuesday night after the glory of beating Arsenal last week. And quite a very different game, wasn't it? But anyway, if you'd have asked me over the Christmas period if we wanted to beat Man United, beat Arsenal, beat Wolves, get 4 clean sheets in the Premier League, etc., with the points that we've accumulated, I would have bitten your hand off, wouldn't I? I guess if we'd have got a draw against Arsenal last week and a win against Brighton last night, I don't think many people would be complaining. But I guess it's the nature of the performance that people are yet again upset about. Twitter or X or whatever it's called now has been going frantic, hasn't it, all day? Facebook has as well, with the way that we performed. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to talk about the two games and the contrast of the two games in a moment. But first of all, let's bring you a bit of news that broke out earlier on this evening, and that's with regards to Divin Mubama. Apparently, my understanding is tonight that contract talks have resumed. As you know, we've been trying to get Mubama and his agent to agree a new deal for something like about a year now. Approaches were turned down, and it looked as if, up until this point, it looked as if Mubama was going to do the same as other young players and leave West Ham United for pastures new. Apparently, Mubama doesn't quite favour that. Now, big difference from one or two of the other players that have left us in recent times. Sonny Perkins and the like. Not West Ham through and through. Have been in the academy, but not necessarily West Ham fans. Now, does that make a difference? Well, I think in the case of Divin Mubama, it does make a difference, because he is a West Ham fan through and through. And apparently, as the story goes tonight, he's concerned that things haven't gone so well. And we talk about how things don't necessarily go so well for our youngsters if they stay at West Ham. But he's actually concerned that things haven't gone so well for the youngsters that have left West Ham. Sonny Perkins, out on loan at Oxford, apparently can't even get a game for Oxford after he made his move to, can't remember, Leeds United. Harrison Ashby moved to Newcastle, out on loan to some championship club. So he's probably looked at that and he's probably thinking, well, maybe I might stand a better chance if I stay at West Ham. Now, that goes against the grain, doesn't it? It goes against everything that we all are led to believe, that David Moyes doesn't give the youngsters a chance and so on and so forth. And yet we hear tonight that Divin Mubama reckons or believes that he's likely to progress better at West Ham United than he would do if he went elsewhere. So fingers crossed. I hope it works for him. I like the player. I'm going to talk a little bit about him when we come to the Brighton game in a moment. But I like him. I think he's a decent young lad. I think, he certainly tries when he gets out on the pitch. May not have all the quality that we might hope for and expect, but at least he gives it a go. And if that contract does materialise, if we do agree on a new contract with the player, I dare say, I think it should have happened this season, but I dare say if we agree a new contract, he'll go out on loan. Maybe the second half of this season, I don't know, or maybe next season. And I think it all depends on what we do in the transfer market and who we get in, because there are quite a number of players leaving rather than coming to West Ham, if you believe all the stories that are out there. But if we do get him to sign a new extended contract, it won't surprise me at all if Mubama goes out on loan for the second half of this season and see how he gets on. I think the boy deserves game time. I think he deserves to demonstrate how good he can really be. And we know that the style of football that we play at West Ham United doesn't necessarily suit him. I don't know about that. I think he can adapt. He's young enough to do so. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But that's the breaking news tonight, that Divin Mubama and his agent have apparently resumed talks with West Ham United. And the player himself, the young lad himself, believes that he has a brighter future at West Ham than he would do if he goes elsewhere. So that's good. Right. What about the games? So last week, as you all know, actually, before I do that, let me go into the chat before it goes into the hundreds of comments. So I'll scroll all the way up so we can catch up on that at least. Who have we got tonight? Good evening, Daniela. No, please not. Not what? Good evening, Foxes. I hope you're well. Yeah, don't want that. I'm guessing you're looking at the, Aguerd out and Eric Dier in. Kehrer, yeah, well, we're going to talk about him in a little bit later on. Daniela again. Will the fan base turn on Aguerd earlier this? Will the fan base who turned on Aguerd earlier this season? So I don't blame him if he wants out, but I want him to stay and negatives kindly piss off. Yeah. That's an interesting story, that one, and I'll come to it in a moment. There was a bit of an update just before I came on as well. Scott, good evening to you. Gabriel Sara plays for Norwich. He looks like a mix of both Paquetá and Kudus. He's got the flair and vision like Paquetá, but runs like Kudus. For 15 million, averaging 7.96 in the champ. Sounds very good. Now, they're trying to get promoted, aren't they? So I don't know. Maybe a decent amount of money might get a player like that in. Good shout, Scott, to be honest with you. I think it'd be a great fit for us. We need to get him, in my opinion, can probably play left wing as well under Moyes. Well, that's the area that I think we're going to likely to focus on. I know everybody wants a striker, and I don't disagree with that. I think a striker is really important, but I'm not so sure that we're going to get a striker in this January window. I kind of said that a few times before. I think quite possibly getting a player that can play on the left side, an attacking left-sided winger, I think is somewhere where we're more heading towards than a striker. Striker in the summer, but I think quite possibly for this January window, if we do any business, we've got to, haven't we? I think we saw that in the game against Brighton. We do need some proper squad depth, some players who are going to be challenging the first 11 rather than just being fillers when any of our first 11 are not available. Sean, good evening to you, mates. Looking forward to the show. Thank you very much. Last night's result might not look too bad in the long run. It's a point. It was a disappointing performance, but it's a point. Usual, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Good evening, Juha. I hope you're well. We need to buy Luke Littler. What a striker. Good evening, Hammerette. I hope you're well. Anyone else watching the darts? Great watch so far. I used to. And I know this young lad is doing wonders, isn't he? 16 years of age. I saw a photo of him. He looks like he's about 35. Aaron, good evening to you. Seen Arsenal have complained to the PGMOL because Saka keeps getting fouled. That isn't that shit, because you know what's going to happen now, don't you, Aaron? You know, they've made a complaint which is going to stick it to the referees every time there's a dubious foul against the likes of Saka or anyone at Arsenal. The referees are going to be pushed to obliged to sort of call it in their favour. I hate that. That's disgusting. Juha, I need to go. What about all the stuff that's happened to us over the years, eh? Should we put in a complaint as well? Juha, I need to complain about being so cold. Whole week has been minus 26. I'd hate Saka to be playing in Finland. Bloody hell, mate. How'd you get by? Bloody hell. Do you wear a bear around you in order to keep warm? Mate, that's cold. I hate it when it's like 10 degrees here, let alone minus anything. Adam, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Happy New Year to you as well, mate. Hopefully it'll be even better yet. Well, can it get any better than 2023 when we won a trophy and back in Europe again? Of course it can be. You know, Wassam, good evening to you. Thank you for joining. Hope you're well. Hammerette, a lot of the talent in our squad has risen and our old squad, namely bench players, have been left behind. A big player out is needed for us to progress with a competitive bench. You're absolutely right. We need a competitive bench. We don't just need squad fillers. Isn't it interesting where we once, I'm going to sort of going into the part of the show where I'm going to talk about the games, but I might as well mix it in. Isn't it interesting, a couple of years back, or even last season as well, for some of our players, we were lauding the likes of Pablo Fornals and Saeed Benrahma, and saying how great they are. Now, when you've got the quality of players like Kudus and Paquetá, with the greatest of respect to them, all of a sudden, the likes of Fornals and Benrahma begin to look quite ordinary. And David Moyes has talked about, he talks about the transfer window and hopefully that we'll get some business done. But he's alluded again, he did this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we didn't buy any players. I can't remember what season that was, 2020, 21 or whatever, when we didn't buy any players in January. And he was alluding to we're at a next level now. The sort of players that we're after are no longer the sort of the players that we kind of didn't say it directly, but not the players that we've got. We need better. And you're absolutely right, Hammerets. Now we're looking for players that can compete with Paquetá, that can compete with Bowen, that can compete with Kudus. So when a player comes off the bench, it's almost like for like. We've got quality players on the bench as well as on the field of play. And I hate even thinking this, because I've loved having Pablo Fornals at West Ham United. I've even loved Saeed Benrahma at West Ham United. But unfortunately, it does seem now that we need players that are just that step up from them. Horrible to say it, but unfortunately, it feels like it's true. Paul, good evening to you, mate. Why was that not a penalty last night? Areola was a superstar. Areola and Alvarez were superb. Do you know what? We saw that. Of course, we don't have hindsight in seeing a replay when you're at the stadium, but I wonder if that was just too early for the ref to... We kind of said it's probably too early for a ref to call for a penalty. But yeah, it probably was too early, which is probably why it wasn't given. Good evening, Clive. I hope you're well. Are we still... What are you waiting for, mate? I've been on here ages. Bloody hell. Show's almost over. Andy, good evening to you, mates. Just seen Onana at Man U has been given permission by Cameroon to play for them against the Spuds on the 14th of January. Yet Ghana wouldn't let Kudus meet up on the 3rd. Big club bias. It's silly, isn't it, really, to be quite honest with you? Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, whichever way you look at it, every national team makes their own decision. I mean, that's quite late, 14th of January. But every national team makes their own decision. And, we were told by Ghana that we weren't going to get Kudus. The irony, really, is that he probably wouldn't have played against Brighton anyway, because he's got a mild hamstring. Now, apparently, he's not meeting up now with the Ghanaian national team for several days to come because of the injury. So there's the irony of it all. Mark, good evening to you, mate. Adam, 21-19. You might have won that bet, mate. Hammer it. A point ain't bad. You are right. It could well look better further into the season. The frustration lies with a subdued performance, but that was both sides, to be fair. Neither wanted to push too far. Kind of implied to agree with that. Brighton had the better of it in the second half, without a shadow of a doubt. Montana, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Moyes in or Moyes out. Do you know, I won't lie, and I'm not meaning it against you or anybody else, but I've kind of gotten bored with this Moyes in, Moyes out stuff, because it's elementary. If the board decide to give David Moyes an extended contract, that's the end of the story. Or are we going to have, let's say for argument's sake, they give him another 1.5 years or 2.5 years or whatever. Are we going to have to go through another 2.5 years or 1.5 years of Moyes in, Moyes out? Or do we just, at that point, do we just accept it as a fan base that the board are happy? And I dare say, if I was a board member and I was looking at West Ham United right now and looking at where we are, 6th in the league, qualified for the latter stages of the Europa League, I'd be sitting there thinking to myself, all right, some football's turgid, but as a businessman, as one of the owners of West Ham United, I'm happy. I'm happy as Larry. So if the board does give David Moyes an extended contract, is that the end of Moyes out for the time being? Or are the fan base going to keep going on and on about it? I don't mean that directly against you, Montana. I'm just asking the question generally, because I think we've just got to lump it, haven't we? If the board decide that. Maron, Moyes out still, usual. Are we still on Always on my time, mate. Always. Look, 9:20, you cheeky gits. Andy, get it. I couldn't believe the total joke. I was fuming when I read it, but this was on Sky Sports News. What did Hammerett say? Was that about I don't know. Let's move on. You know what I'm like. My memory's really short, like a goldfish. Hammerett, Littler is going to celebrate if he wins with a vape and a car to learn to drive in. Is he old enough to vape? Montana. Stout, I hope Tim will sign 3 or 4 key players in the last week or so. We need better options than Ward-Prowse and Soucek in the middle. Alvarez has to do everything himself. He was immense, Alvarez. Absolutely immense. Honestly, mate, honestly don't think we're going to sign 3 or 4 players. You know, I think if we get 2, I think we'd have done well. I'm expecting something like 3 to go. I'm expecting more players to leave in this window than to come in. But if we manage to get 2, I really think we'd have done well. Juha, Moyes in. Our squad could not play any better. Maybe when we are out of Europe and can play a whole new squad with a new manager. Good evening, Howard. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Good evening to you, Razor. How are you, mate? He's called Dier because he is. Moyes doesn't have any input with Tim's choices who come in other than where they play in the system. He will be sacked for in the end. Like needing a striker and a left back. And it's interesting because I've got a story about Broja in a minute. And, you know, when I was told about it yesterday, and I was, you know, the statement I was given, and I just carried on talking when Sean told me about it. And he went, "Stop. Did you listen to what I told you?" And I went, "What?" And he's, you know, and he read he gave me the statement again. And I went, "Oh." So there's it's going to be linked to Steiden and Moyes, the Broja story, but you're going to have to wait until I get through your chat. Let's see, who else have we got? Good evening to you, Brendan. Evening to you. You know that is my surname. I feel like a naughty schoolboy. What's his surname? Is Toja? I can't even pronounce you. Is it Toja? Your first name, or is Brendan your first? I'm guessing Brendan's your first name. Montana. How true are the caustic rumours? I would take him, but how likely is he to be motivated to play for us after turning us down? He's turned us down twice, apparently. You know, this summer gone and the summer before is my understanding. You know, these things come up, don't they, Montana? You know, the same story, Broja. Same story comes up year in, year out. Kostic has been for a couple of years now, a few other players. And sometimes you just got to say to yourself, it's just rumours. It's just agent talk. This isn't really going to happen. Bill, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Happy New Year to you as well. Good evening to you, Garino. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Good evening to you, PAF. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Irene. Happy New Year's to every Hammers fan. Happy New Year to you as well. And thank you for joining. Good evening, Finn. How are you? Stell's come as a geography teacher. Fine. I don't even know how to get to Stratford, let alone give you any geography lessons, mate. Ian, happy New Year to you, mate. Thank you for joining. Go Hams. Go Hams. I haven't heard us called that before, but I'll go with that. Thank you very much. Good evening, Kent. How are you? Happy New Year, mate. Evening, Stel. We shouldn't have lost the game last night. Possibly 4-5, 6-0. It showed our backup players are not good enough. Stel, we should have lost the game last night. It shows our backup players are not good enough. Big January transfer window for West Ham. We need reinforcements if possible. It really does, doesn't it? To be quite honest with you, show. And I know they had players out as well. I know, you know, let's not forget that. They had several players out, first team players out as well. But unfortunately, it does look as if our squad, isn't it interesting? Isn't it funny that at the beginning of the season, we were patting ourselves on the back by saying, Christ, this is the best squad we've had in years. It's going to be immense. The best squad we had in years. The unfortunate truth, the reality is, it's the best 11 that we've had in years. But unfortunately, squad, not so it seems, which is a massive, massive shame. I have the moment. Good evening to you. Please let there be no interest in Dier. I don't think there is, but I'll just string you along for a bit longer, shall I? Jerry, evening all. Darts are great. Can't watch it. But I hope I'm glad you're all enjoying it. Lee, good evening to you. I hope you're well, mate. Happy New Year to you. Galispero to you, Keith. I hope you're well, and Happy New Year to you as well. Good evening to you, Ronnie. Happy New Year to you. The performance was dire. It certainly was. Montana. With the club extending Soucek, I feel like Moyes will get an extension with KPIs to play more youth and utilise squad better. I heard that. We talked about this briefly last week. I don't think any manager will be held to have to play more young players. I just think that's just not a reality, to be quite honest with you. Of course, we'd all like to see younger players. And it was wonderful to see 4 academy players on the bench last night against Brighton. Okay, only Mubama came on, but the other 2 were defenders, and the other one, Lewis Orford, was a midfielder. So I don't think any club can force a manager or can put a KPI in a manager's contract to say you have to have 2 players on the young players on the bench, or you must play 1 young player every other game or something like that. It just doesn't work that way. What he'd only be doing it lip service, and that wouldn't be any better either. And it'll be wasting, if he was told, right, Moyes, you've got to have 2 young players on the bench every game, that's wasting 2 positions for players that he could be utilising, senior players that he might bring in during the transfer windows. Garino, Saudi bids in for Benrahma and Aguerd, Cornet being hawked around Turkish clubs, and Kehrer off to Monaco. Going to be busy months, it seems. I would say the Saudi bids are not happening for either player. Cornet, wouldn't be surprised. Kehrer is, of those 4, Kehrer is the most definite right now. And that's one reason why he was out of the squad last night. Was he ill? Not really. Andy, Dier, please no. Broja was dog shit for Chelsea the other day. Lord, no to him either. I think you'll get your wish there, mate. Good evening to you, Scott. I hope you're well. Is it true that Sancho is on his way? No. He's on 250 grand a week. He's got an attitude. Apparently, he turns up late for training and all that sort of stuff. Do you really think he's going to come to David Moyes, who's going to say, right, lads, you're being at 8:30 every morning? No. If it was going to happen, Scott, Man United would have to subsidise at least 150 grand of his wages. Can you see that happening? To let him go out on loan to another club that wants to compete for the top 6, whilst Man United are also trying to do so. I think Sancho's a good player. He seems to have a bit of an attitude. And at 250 grand a week, I think not. I don't think Moyes would touch, even Moyes wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. Let's scroll down a bit because I want to get through these comments so I can get on with the show. Finn, Stel, is it true every sheep in Wales has to be sheared to make West Ham? I don't know. I'll ask Sean next time I speak to him. Sancho's more likely to be going to Dortmund, is my understanding as well. Can they afford? Well, I guess they can, maybe. Good evening to you, Peter. I hope you're well. Did anyone watch Mr. West Ham football season 13, episode 23 and 24, regarding the survey of a wide range of West Ham fans? 76% of them were happy with David Moyes. I think it depends on who you speak to and when you speak to them, because I dare say that 76% would have been lowered somewhat after the performance against Brighton on Tuesday night. And when it's good, that 76% could go up even more. Kent, Perkins gone back to Leeds because of lack of game time. There you go. Couldn't even get to play on loan at Oxford. John, good evening to you. Happy New Year to you as well, mate. Sorry, Moyes is on my side. I think he's on most people's side. There are some of us who are Moyes in. There are some of us who are obviously Moyes out. And there are a lot of us who are Moyes neutral at the moment, aren't there? Bill, Mubama did a lot of running around, but I don't think he had a touch. Does his obvious talent suit Moyes' game plan? Well, maybe not. Maybe he does. Well, that's why. Maybe if he goes out on loan and he's deployed as a lone striker, that would be a learning curve for him, wouldn't it? To come back better equipped. Garino, Garassi reported to be a done deal, but he is away at AFCON. I don't know where you've heard that, because I certainly haven't heard that myself, but I won't dispute it, but I will ask about it. Daniela, I watched the game in the pub. Okay, not a great game, but I've seen many likes, and I think they've been a lot over the top negative reactions to it. And in the last month, only one defeat in 8 league, 2 defeats in all competitions, I think, if I'm not mistaken, against Liverpool and in the last 10 games, against Liverpool and Fulham. All right, there were both thumpings. Both of them scored 5 against us. But my understanding is it's 2 defeats in the last 10. That's not a bad record, to be honest. All right, I know the games have been boring. I'm not disputing that. John, I know last night's game was awful, but Brighton was a tough side to crack. I agree with that. I do agree with that. Adam, poor game on Tuesday, but still got to be happy. Every team has bad patches, but we didn't lose. And 7 points from 3 games is good going. But performance was poor, but battling and playing for each other. Absolutely. I agree with that. Irene, we had a great year last season after winning the Conference League win. We did indeed. Good evening to you, Jonathan. Happy New Year. I hope you're well, mates. Montana, I feel like Tim has already understood what kind of players suit Moyes ball, and he's keen on getting ones to suit. Dier would be a better upgrade than Dawson people. I like the move. Interesting point there, Montana. I kind of agree with you. You know, I think that the two men have got an understanding. The whole idea of Tim Steidten, yes, there's got to be a revolution happen in terms of, well, no, let's not say revolution, an evolution of West Ham United. We need to improve. We need to get better step by step. Doesn't always take, you know, when Steidten came in, I think he was alluding to something like a 4-year project, I think, if I remember rightly, when he was in between jobs before coming to West Ham. And it takes time. You know, it's taken Moyes 4 years to get us to this stage. It could take Steidten another 4 years to get us up to the next level that we all believe we ought to be at. And I agree with you. I think Steidten and Moyes have got an understanding. Good evening to you, Ryan. Hello, mate. I'm very well, mate. Thank you for joining. Happy New Year to you. Pete Gads, after yesterday, I can't wait for Antonio to come back. Isn't that sad when you can't wait for, with the greatest of respect to him, you know, I hope he comes back all guns blazing and he scores loads of goals and all that sort of stuff. You know, I really do. I really do. If he comes back and he's the same performances as before he went off injured, I'd rather he stayed injured, to be honest with you. Thank you, Irene. I love you too. Andy, replying to H8, Alphonse's public enemy #1 in Brighton. He just was immense, wasn't he? He's been immense he's kept us in a lot of games, hasn't he? Sean, left-sided attacker can also play centrally. Yes, is what I hope we're going to get. That's what I think Moyes and Steidten are going for. I think they're looking for a player that can play out on the left, but can also play a little bit like what we've got at the moment, you know. So rather than Paquetá having to go out there and Fornals having to fill in, he's never been, you know, with the greatest of respect to him, he's never been great on the left. He's done a job, but it's not been a great job. He's just filled in, hasn't he, Fornals? But rather than having Paquetá play out there, I'd rather Paquetá was in the middle and we had a player that goes out wide, bit like Bowen on the right hand side and Kudus on the right hand side as well. They can play centrally as well. That's what we're missing on that left hand side. It ain't Benrahma, is it? Unfortunately, it's not Fornals either. Unfortunately, you know. So I think that's what we're going for. Ballon Harriata seen at Dagenham Pie and Mash. Here we go. Hammerette. I've been thinking about the links to yeah, that player. He only signed for PSG in the summer. No, he's been there. No, yes, you're right. He did. He was on loan and then he signed. And then they were forced, because he played a number of games, they were forced to sign him permanently. And they didn't want to do that. Why would they be selling him so fast? And why has he dropped value? Just that. He went out on loan. I can't remember who he was playing for before. He went out on loan for a season at PSG. And apparently, there were in these loan to buy deals. It's a bit like what we're doing with Kehrer. If he plays a certain number of games at Monaco on his loan, then they've got an obligation to buy. And the same happened to Ekitike, where he played a certain number of games. He managed to go through over that threshold, so PSG had no choice but to buy him. But my understanding is they didn't want to buy him. I don't think he did that well with them. Obsidian, good evening to you, mate. Happy New Year. Moyes won't watch the darts. He hates anyone. Brendan. Saka also dives. The other clubs should put that complaint. Absolutely. It's stupid. I can't believe they're being allowed to make a complaint. What's all that about? Flemmer, good evening to you. Happy New Year, mate. Let me know when Moyes are out. Keep watching. Ian, darts 4-4. Oh, interesting. It sounds like a good game, that. Paul, Saka should have been sent off. Liverpool in our game. Diving cheat. It is a diving cheat. Epic. But it's all right when he does it for England. So long as we win something with that, that's all right. Epic. Benrahma and Fornals used to be better. Moyes ruined them both. Did he, though? You know what? What I'll say is I'll agree on the Fornals bit because he's always played him out of position and it's not done Fornals his confidence any good. So I'll go with that. Benrahma, I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. I was a big Benrahma fan when we signed him, a big Ben Fornals fan when we signed him. And I look at Fornals and I would say, I would agree with you, Epic. I would agree with you on the Fornals. I'm not so sure about the Benrahma thing. So how often is he flattered to deceive? 1 minute we think, what a superb player he is. And the next minute it's like last night, did you see that I don't know if in the highlights they showed it or anyone that watched the game live, was it in the first half? I think it was in the first half where he was away from he was facing our own goal, was out wide on the wing, and he picked the ball up and it's like, come get it forward, Benny. And he fumbled with it. He ended up kicking it out of touch. And we were all like, what on earth? What on earth what just went on there? It's at that moment where he had to change his boots. Of course, blame your tools. It was the boots' fault. Ballon. Stell, has Sean confirmed to links to Genoa? No, he hasn't, and I'm not saying the name. Sharky, good evening to you. Happy New Year, mate. I hope you're well. Good evening, Football with Brownie. I hope you're well. Just popped in to wish you and everyone in the chat Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you for that. Montana. We need players that gives Moyes a headache. With Dinos playing so well, Zuma might have a hard time getting back in the spot on. This is exactly it, isn't it? You know, we need players that when they get their chance, they take it. And I've got a list of players in front of me that I'm going to talk about that I believe have taken their chance. Adam, you should always dream still and the same times, and sometimes they come true. Europa League winners, Champion League next year. Always dream, mate. I said it last season. I'm not being so confident this season, but I said last season we'll go all the way in the Europa Conference, and we did. That was my one dream used up. There you go. I've run out, haven't I? Peter, we should try our hardest to keep both players, Kehrer and Aguerd. I don't disagree with that, but I think one of them is Kehrer. Definitely is on his way out. David, good evening to you. We need a manager who is that next up. I asked this question last week, to be honest with you, David. You know, I asked quite legitimately, what do we believe is our next step up? Because next step up is obviously top four. Do we really think we're a club ready to actually be challenging for top four? I don't think so, to be quite honest with you. Of course, I'd love us to be, but I think, you know, we're that club now that is becoming acclimatized, accustomed to challenging for top six. And I think that's good. Are we at the stage to be able to, even with another manager, are we at the stage to be able to challenge for top four? I don't think, because that's our next level. You know, we've gone from that perpetual mid-table relegation threatened club, you know, having the odd decent season every now and again, to some stability, trying to, you know, get into the top six, top seven, even to get into Europe. We've now climbed that next step. I think we need to stabilize ourselves over the next couple of seasons to be that way. I'm not suggesting that we should not be dreaming of the next level. But I think you've got to get yourself steady, acclimatize yourself, continuously competing for a top six, top seven place. And then it's that next step, isn't it? It's that slow step up. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't think we don't deserve, you know, if we play well, we deserve to be in the top four, you know, and continuously compete for top four. But let's not forget now, there are a lot of teams in the Premier League who have got a lot of money behind them. No, and they're also competing for top four. The usual greedy six, of course, joined by Aston Villa, joined by Newcastle United, and there's us as well. We're kind of like clinging on to those shirt tails, and what we want to be doing is to be steadily progressing, you know, and then maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, maybe if Moyes gets an extension of a contract, then you get that top level. That's when you attract the big names, isn't it? Managers who will look at West Ham United as a prospect. Do many managers look at West Ham United as a prospective top 4 team now? I'm not sure they do. I think they look at West Ham as a very good side who will always be in the top half of the league, aiming for top 6. But that next level, David, is top 4, isn't it? Pigads. Alvarez didn't get that pen because he initiated the contact. It was pretty bad acting. See, I didn't see it, so I didn't see the replay. So I take your word for that, mate. John, good evening to you. Happy New Year. Didn't know this was on. What are you doing running the bullshit Dier story? That ain't happening. We fans won't allow it. We fans have got no say in who we sign. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not. Finn, X has confirmed interest in Huddersfield youngster Cole Ostami. I've never heard of him, so I will look that up later. Stell's gone all Sherlock Elementary. There you go. Education, that is. Anthos, hope you're well, mate. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for joining, mate. Montana. Still, I think Tim should get Moyes a squad of 15 players since he only needs a small squad to work with. Look, Moyes has admitted it. Moyes has admitted over time that he would prefer to work with a smaller squad. I think that's fine when you're not competing in Europe, when you're not competing for domestic cups, etc. But when you're in Europe regularly, if you want to stay in Europe regularly and you want to compete for domestic trophies as well, that's when you need a bigger squad. And I think even Moyes will probably see that. Right. What other info we've got? So let's talk a little bit about the games, shall we? Now, the Arsenal game. What a contrast between the Arsenal game and the Brighton game over the last few days. The Arsenal game, I mean, I was at both, and the atmosphere at Arsenal was nail-biting. But boy, oh boy, we put in a fantastic performance, didn't we? For those who saw my 3-minute review when I was coming out of the stadium, you saw how happy West Ham fans were. Now, that was a defensive masterclass. It's interesting. I put a post up on Facebook earlier today and said, something like, I can't remember what I said. Good defending in Serie A in Italy is considered a class, whereas good defending in the Premier League is considered as just a sort of a one-dimensional approach to playing football. Now, and had that been an Italian club defending the way we did against Arsenal, it would have been highlighted in Italy as a masterclass of football. Because we did defend extremely well. The whole unit, the whole team did exceptionally well. And we deserved the win. We hit them on the break. We got the opportunities to hit them on the break, and set pieces, etc. And we absolutely deserved to win that game. And as people were alluding to, it looked like, well, at one stage or at most stages, it looked like Arsenal were trying to walk the ball into the net, the old Arsenal, trying to walk it into the net. And then they, like the likes of Saka, etc., were trying to do the dark arts and trying to dive and all that sort of stuff, getting free kicks and penalty calls and all sorts. We did exceptionally well. We should be applauding the team for the way we played. It was a masterclass. The thing is, the contrast with the game against Brighton is you don't expect to have to defend for the whole second half the way we did against Arsenal. And I think that's the biggest shame. But the difference, of course, is the outlets that we had in the game against Arsenal, we didn't have against Brighton. Right. People are saying, well, it's only Brighton, and we should be spanking them, etc. How many times have we lost against Brighton over the years? To actually get 4 points off Brighton in the Premier League, I think this is the first time for years. We've taken forever to beat them. And to get 4 points against them, I think is, they are a good team. They're a very organised team. I was, in a way, almost admiring them and how relentless they were in the second half. They kept the ball. They kept it really well. They kept trying to create stuff, and they had us on the back foot. We had no answer. We had no outlet. It kind of shows that for the Arsenal game, when we have the likes of Kudus and Paquetá and players like that, we have outlets. We've got outlets to be able to take the ball forward. What I felt sorry for, or who I felt sorry for in the game against Brighton was Jarrod Bowen, because whenever he got the ball, he tried to make things happen. He tried to, take it on the front foot, trying to sort of push the agenda to get us on the front foot. Sorry, but there was one moment in the second half where Bowen got the ball. He got into the box, and he was sort of almost looking around as if to say, "Where's my support?" And he realised that he was the only player in the box. That Fornals and Benrahma was still out wide and not there supporting. There was no one behind him, and he looked really pissed off. He looked really frustrated. Now, the difference between the game against Arsenal last week was he had players around him. He had support. He had the players understanding of being able to sort of come up and support, right behind him, etc. And that didn't happen against Brighton on Tuesday night. And it was a real shame, and now you tell me the format was the same. I'm sure the tactics were no different. What Moyes wanted against Arsenal is probably what he wanted against Brighton. But, we didn't seem to have the players to be able to execute the game plan. And it was a massive alarm bell, and I think, as Montana said, we just need to go out there and get ourselves reinforcements in this January window. We need a lot of players, but we at least two, at least an attacking player, and maybe with the likes of Kehrer with the likes of Kehrer going, we need someone to cover at the back as well. It's been great. I mean, Angelo Ogbonna has been, one of the standout players in both those games, Arsenal and against Brighton. He's been superb. Who would have thought? I've loved Ogbonna for a long time. I think he's been a superb player for West Ham United. But who would have thought he would have been able to put in the performances that he has done against both those teams? Absolutely immense. And as people have been alluded to, when it came to our midfield, Alvarez ran that show. He ran the show against Arsenal as well. And for those of you who watched it, I sort of questioned who was going to win the midfield against Arsenal. Was it going to be Alvarez or was it going to be Declan Rice? And Alvarez shone. He absolutely shone in the game against Arsenal, and he carried that on in the game against Brighton as well. So he was another standout. And of course, for us in goal, Alphonse Areola. There have been many question marks over Areola. People questioning whether he's the right sort of goalkeeper for us. He was immense. I mean, he got us a point. He won us a point, didn't he, against Brighton? And I know I shouldn't be saying he won us a point when we're at home, but he absolutely did. He absolutely was. And the number of saves he pulled off, I think my understanding is he pulled off something like 8 or 9 top saves. I think one was a double save as well. Absolutely immense. So, okay, the performance against Arsenal and the setup and the tactics, etc., the team formation was no different. Brighton and Arsenal, exactly the same. It's the execution of the performance that made a massive difference. And unfortunately, when it came to Brighton, it demonstrated just how much we really need players like Kudus and Paqueta, and when they're not around, and I dread to think one day if Alvarez has an injury that keeps him out for too long, that worries me. If Alphonse Areola has another, I mean, he had a wrist injury, didn't he, a few weeks ago? If he's out for a lot longer, these are key players. We've got a very, very decent spine at the moment. And I remember Alec Ferguson always talking about the spine of the team is important. So we've got a very good keeper. I think Mavropanos has stepped in and he's done exceptionally well alongside Ogbonna. Now, this is the thing I was going to say earlier on. I said I've got a list of players that I think have stepped up, squad players that I think have stepped up to the plate. For me, Mavropanos has been one of them. Angelo Ogbonna has been another one. And Ben Johnson has been another one. He came out with a little bit of credit in the game against Liverpool when we got tonked 5-1, but he also came out with a lot of credit. I think he played very decent against Brighton on Tuesday night as well. So there are players, people talk about, and I've said it as well myself, if you're not utilising your squad, if you're only giving them 5 minutes here and there, it's going to take ages for them to acclimatise and get into it. Johnson's done it. Mavropanos has done it. Ogbonna has done it. These are players that have been biding their time, been on the subs bench. I'm sure they're just as frustrated as the likes of Fornals and Benrahma and other players like that. They're just as frustrated sitting on the bench waiting for their time. But these players, Johnson, Mavropanos, and Ogbonna, have taken their opportunity and have demonstrated, if you need me, I'm here. I'm as good as, or I will attempt to be as good as, if not better than, the players that start week in, week out. So for me, Mavropanos and Ogbonna have been immense. And Johnson, I know the contract negotiations have stalled there as well. But even Johnson, who is meant to be leaving the club, has also been very decent for us. And then you look at the contrast, the likes of Fornals and Benrahma, when you say to yourself, okay, here's your chance now, lads. Here's your opportunity to demonstrate what you're capable of doing. And neither of them have taken it. It feels as if they've gone backwards rather than gone forwards. And all right, I said earlier, I agreed that Fornals, playing out on the left, I think he's wasted. We've always known that Fornals is much better in the central midfield rather than out wide. We know that. But, he was playing out on the right. He was given an opportunity to sort of demonstrate what he's capable of doing. He didn't, not a lot. And then Benrahma is one of the most frustrating footballers we've probably currently got at West Ham United right now. We know the quality that he has, and yet when he came on as a sub for Paqueta in the Arsenal game, and then he started the game against Brighton, neither of those performances told me that he's got the quality that we need anymore. And it's a real shame. Look, I was sent a stat by Sean earlier on, fresh fielder. Thank you for this, mate. Much appreciated. These were the stats against Brighton last night. It's not good reading. It looked like we're the away team. So in 96 minutes, we had 6 shots to their 22, of which they had 8 on target, 8 saves by Areola. We only had 2. And passes, they had a double our number of passes, accuracy rate, pass completion higher than ours. So you look at that and possession, there you go, 69% possession for an away team. Now, I've always said, to be quite honest with you, I don't mind if we don't have a lot of possession. It's what you do with the possession that counts. And when we played against Arsenal, the possession absolutely, that lack of possession that we had, we made whatever possession we had count for us. We didn't make it count. All right, there was that Soucek missed kick in the second half, etc. But we had hardly any other opportunities in the game against Brighton. And that is down to, like I said, formation's the same, the tactics are the same, but the execution of the tactics just weren't there. And it demonstrates, unfortunately, that we really, really do need reinforcements in this window. Will we get 3 or 4 like people have asked for? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. If we get 2, I think would have done well. But for me, it's got to be. I mean, I'd like to make sure that we have cover for Alvarez. I'd like to make sure that we have cover for a few other positions. But if we get 1 defender and 1 attacking player left-sided, I think that's probably going to be our lot. Right. Let's go back into your chat and I'll get on to the next part of the show in a moment. Pigad, I'm thinking all West Ham needed some quality loans to fill the cracks. You know who would have made a difference in that game. Don't start with J-Lings. It won't surprise me if he he turns up at Rush Green in the next couple of days saying, yeah, I've signed a 6-month deal, and he absolutely turns it on. The irony, we know the dickhead can do it. We know that Lingard can actually turn it on. He's just wasted another player that's just wasted his career. Evening, Ray. Happy New Year to you. I hope you're well. Good evening to you, Tyrone. Moyes Ball. I love it. Good evening to you. Peter, good evening to you. Wouldn't have Broja as he hasn't pulled up any trees. I totally agree with you there. Hammer X, Broja has not played that much. Such a liability with injuries. No different from getting Phillips. I totally agree. Jerry, what's happened with Coufal? Well, actually, it wasn't in my script, but I'll talk about Coufal for a brief moment. Vladimir Coufal, we've extended his now. By the way, all these loan deals, etc., contract deals, etc. If you remember, I think about 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, something like that, I talked about Thomas Soucek getting a new deal, and I don't know why it's taken West Ham United to finally officially announce it. They still haven't officially announced Antonio's new deal. that I've talked about. They still haven't officially, well, they did finally officially announce Soucek still the other day. They still haven't officially announced the 1-year contract extension, I don't believe, for Fabianski. I don't know why they're taking forever. But and then Coufal is another player that has just had, we had a 1-year extension on his contract, and we've taken advantage of that. But now Coufal is one of the lowest paid players, if not the lowest paid. No, before he's not. Johnson is the lowest paid senior player at West Ham, with Coufal just above him. So now look, fair enough. Coufal has done extremely well for us. I don't necessarily think we should be giving Coufal an even longer contract than the 1 year that he's extension that he's got, because that'll take him to what, 32, something like that. We've got an awful lot of players. There's Ogbonna, 35 years of age. There's Fabianski, 37, 38 years of age. We do need some fresh blood, some young blood. So I don't think it's wrong to have given Coufal just the 1-year extension, but it would have been nice to have given him a pay rise, because I think he's on, the poor lad, I don't know how he survives. I think he's only about 35, 40 grand a week. And I mean, you can't get by these days with 40 grand a week, can you? But in all seriousness, he is getting paid a lot less than some of the other or most of the other senior players. So what would have been nice for West Ham, Jerry, is to have given him a little bit of an increase on his salary. And I think that's what he's upset about. Now, does that relate to why he wasn't in the squad or in the team sheet last night? My understanding is, and I think he even put on his Twitter account or whichever social media account he uses, my understanding is that he was ill. And there's still this bug. This is a very favorable bug when you need to cover for players missing. Aguerd apparently had it, which is why he missed the last few games, and Coufal apparently had it, flu or whatever. That is my understanding. Does it have anything to do with the contract? Well, you've seen the comments that his agents made, that he's not happy. So let's see what materializes. He should have been given a pay rise. As I said, I don't think he should be given a longer term of contract, but certainly a pay rise would have been appropriate. James, good evening to you. Moyes in, Moyes out, fan base, hot and cold, depending on the results. Isn't it just? John, still, the ignorance is deafening. Tocker, it's Irish. Thank you, Tocker. I didn't know that. So I really, I'm just, I'm shit at saying most names. So thank you for correcting me. Tocker, I now know. I probably haven't pronounced that right either, have I? What else have we got here? Rico, good evening to you. I hope you're well, mate. You're doing extremely well. I'm really, really pleased for you. I hope all is well with you. So there you go. John, it's a silent G. Connacht, not Munster. Me. Silent G. He didn't put G in the name. Oh, Toha. So is it Toha, not Tocker? Toha. Work it out and let me know. Pete, point game rather than 2 lost. When you assess the game minus claret and blue glasses, point gained. Yeah, point gained. It was a point gained. Tough point gains. Martin, personally, I don't think January is a good time to try to strengthen a squad. It doesn't usually work. Well, I don't know about that. We got Bowen and Soucek in Moyes' second time of being here, and they worked out pretty well. Yeah, pronunciation is not my strong point, so my apologies. Toha or Toka? Let me know. Sharky, Sancho is rumoured to be going back to Dortmund. Yeah, absolutely. Rico, Forest under the knife with financial fair play. Who wished that we would go down. Be careful what you wish for, Forest. But they spent a lot of money. I'm not surprised that they're being checked over for financial fair play. And I know people say that the board use that as an excuse not to spend money. The board have spent money, but we do have to move players on. We don't necessarily have to sell them. We just need to get them off the wage bill. And if we get them off the wage bill, then that will give us some leeway in order to be able to bring players in, whether on loan or whether on permanent. That's what we have to do. Garino, Reed Garassi, info came from ITK on Knees Up Mother Brown, who has a good record last 2 or 3 years, but obviously things can happen. I'm going to look into that. I didn't really think there was a lot of mileage in that, to be quite honest with you, Garino, but I'm going to look into that. Thank you for that. Ronnie, it's obvious that without the magic of Paqueta and Kudus, we are clueless. We did look, I can't deny it. It was disappointing. We did look a little bit clueless on Tuesday night. Hammer it. Cornet, rarer than knocking horseshit injury, is preventing him to be used, in my opinion. Who knows what the medics have said about it? I have said this several times, and I was told at the end of last season, beginning of this season, that Cornet, we tried to move him on. I think Everton were interested. We tried to move him on. They looked at his injury record and they said no. There's something in that. And I think Moyes kind of alluded to it when he was asked about Cornet in the post-match, one of the post-match press conferences. And he said, well, he had 5 months off with this injury, etc., etc. And he kind of, I think I think this is a sort of injury that, because it was so rare, that if he suffers it again, it's quite likely it could be career ending, and I know people, because I've asked the question, what's going on? We've seen him, and then we saw him against in the Europa League when he created a goal for our one of our goals against TSC, and then he disappeared again. And I think he's had about 2 minutes since then. So there is something in that, is my understanding. Let's scroll down. Jonathan. What do the Moyes in peeps not get? We don't like the style of play, the lack of subs, the poor player management, general attitude towards the players and fans. It's not just about result. I get all that. I understand that. And I agree with you. Now, when I look at the style of play, I agree. We prefer to play counter-attacking football. And sometimes that doesn't happen because the teams sit back, and then we've got to take the game to them. And we haven't been great at that. When it comes to lack of subs, I think we're beginning to find out now that Moyes is the reason why Moyes is not using subs is because he really probably doesn't think he's got anything on the bench that's going to be better that's currently on the pitch. Poor player management, yeah, I've alluded to Fornals. I don't think he's used him very well. Benrahma, yeah, maybe he's a sort of player that needs an arm around his shoulder in order to get him going, but that's not Moyes' style. General attitude towards the players and the fans, I don't think he's said anything derogatory about the fans, to be honest with you. Arnautovic, John, is doing nothing. He can stay doing nothing, mate. I don't want him back. Peter, I have a feeling Zuma will be out longer than first said. Medical team don't have a good record. I wouldn't be surprised. Tim Werner, yeah, that's all gone quiet, hasn't it? Garino, increasing interest in Paquetá, or depending on who you know. So if we spend big now, then Paquetá is likely to be going. But I don't think he will. I think that's the one for the summer. Epic, I heard Lingard is spotted in Canary Wharf. Andy, left-sided attackers appear to be rarer than the hen's teeth. Who is out there that we could sign? You know what? I was asked last week if I could look, give a list, and I haven't had time to do that. But the interesting thing is, Andy, strikers, decent strikers, are as rare. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Let's scroll down. Please forgive me. I'm trying to do add in as many comments as I can. Sometimes it's just impossible because I've realised now I'm quite a bit behind. Ian, Benny was running around in circles. What was that about? You tell me. We just looked at each other and went, what is going on here? Good evening, Ironics. How are you? Surely we can afford better than Eric Dier. Has he dropped form? He has dropped form incredibly and is nearly 30. Yeah, I agree. But maybe Moyes thinks, look at what we all said about Craig Dawson, and he turned out to be an icon. Would you want Dier, though? I don't know. HH11, good evening to you. Could we snag Poch when he gets fired? He's not doing that well at Chelsea, and he's got an abundance of money, hasn't he, to spend? Do you want? I don't mind Poch. Maybe. But I think Moyes is going to get the contract extension, to be honest with you. Spencer, here's a question. If Moyes is so great, how many clubs are queuing to sign him up in the summer? Don't know. But it'd be interesting. I mean, I think there'll be 1 or 2 Premier League clubs that will be interested in Moyes, but they'll be the lower end of the league, wouldn't they? Teams that maybe have survived relegation or even teams that maybe have come up, whatever. There'll be a few, But certainly, I think even he knows that this is going to be his last big job. I think he knows that. Thomas, good evening to you. Stability. This bloke's had 4 years, for Christ's sake, and we lose basically 2 attackers, and we're garbage. Brighton lose 11 first teamers and give us the runaround. Look, I know. I'm not disagreeing with that. I get that. I hear that. Ballon. Still, are we looking to sign Scottish under-21 international Drew Peacock from Kilmarnock? Nothing that I've heard, but I'll look into that one as well. Scott, check out Gabriel. Yes, you mentioned that earlier, mates. Yeah, it's a good chat. Interesting shout. Let's scroll down. Eamon, good evening to you. I hope you're well. I think top 4 is possible, but only if we can add to Kudus, Paquetá, and Bowen and not have to sell them to buy the players. I totally agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. I think if we can keep those players and add the same level of quality, then absolutely. Why not top 4? Why not aim for top 4? Pigads, my Italian buddy thinks a 0-0 is the greatest thing ever. They would do. They love their defending. L&D exterior cleaning. Good evening to you. How we missed Pack, Coufal, etc. in midweek. We did. We absolutely did. I don't disagree with that. Andrew, no room for sentiment. The players are all mentioned have made a contribution one way or another, but the time has always come to improve and evolve. And that is the nature of footy, isn't it? You know, you improve and you evolve. Unfortunately, players that we might like may not be, Benrahma, Fornals. I love both of them. But should we be moving on from them? It seems so. Andy, defending a lead is much better watching than defending a 0-0 like we did last night. Protecting the lead is exciting. Last night was desperate. I don't disagree with that either. I wasn't suggesting for one moment that last night was a masterclass in defending. Not at all. Ironics. Only Brighton. They've been whipping us for years. I know. Exactly that. A draw is good. Yeah, I don't disagree. Absolutely. Let me scroll down. Do forgive me. I know I'm going to miss a few comments, but so forgive me for that. Good evening, Lord Patrick. How are you? Respect the point. I hope you're well, mate. Happy New Year to you. Lord Patrick again. Moyes did not bitch about the players after Tuesday's game because he had them in the shop window and hopes a couple move on. No, he didn't pick anyone out. Ronnie, the plus for the 4 matches was 4 clean sheets. The minus was the 2,000 shots. Opposition. Thank God. Thank God for Areola, eh? He's been great. Melissa, good evening to you. We need another serious backup for Alvarez. Totally agree. If he runs out of energy, I totally agree with that. Thomas, 200 grand check in his back pocket. Oh, did he win? Has he won? Has he won the darts? And is that what he gets? 200 grand. Not bad for a 16-year-old. Not bad at all. Good evening, Cockney. I hope you're well. I'm just glad we have a good tally of points now in case the perfect storm comes in injuries and absentees that will see us drop like a stone like last season. Well, we didn't drop like a stone. We just stayed down there, didn't we? And we finally rose up to 14th, So, yeah, interesting. John, I hear that all the old biddies are out in Birmingham tonight. Now they know it's safe. You're talking about Rooney. Good evening, Dexter. I hope you're well. I'm very well, mate. I hope you are too. Good seeing you after the Arsenal game. It was great. Always nice to say hello to people. We've had a brilliant festive period. What's your thoughts on Cornet not getting a look in? I feel sorry for him. Also, Kehrer. Kehrer is on the cards, going to leave. So I kind of understand that bit. Cornet does confuse me, like Hammeret's mentioned earlier. There's something about this injury that we don't quite know about. But then, then why have him on the bench? If he's that inclined to be injured again, then don't even have him on the bench. And I don't get it. I'd like to see what the man can do. I think, he's a half decent footballer. We paid £17.5 million for him. We saw snippets of what he could do last season, the goal against Chelsea that was disallowed. He had a couple of decent cameos. And then he picked up the injury. The injury was bad. Let's not joke. The injury was bad, and it was a rare injury. And maybe he's just not recovered from it fully. Like I said, it looked as if we were trying to move him on in the summer, and clubs were looking at his medical record and deciding not to go with it. L&D would like to see some of the youngsters get minutes on the pitch. Sunday, I think, against Bristol City. I'm pretty certain we'll see, if not starting, I reckon we'll see a few of them being used from the subs bench. I'm pretty sure of that. GP, coming to you. Happy New Year to you, mate. I hope you're well. Let's scroll down. Bill, is it that the players that have been told they're going are now using it as a shop window, whereas the others know they will continue to bench warm? Well, who's in the shop window? Because I doubt very much Ogbonna is, and he's been playing great. Maybe Johnson, potentially, but we haven't told him he's going. We want him to stay. It's just that we can't agree a contract with him. And then you look at the players who might be in the shop window. Fornals, we know he's going in the summertime. You know, he's not going to be let go, especially with AFCON, losing Kudus, etc. He's not going to be going now. But maybe he's in the shop window. He's not demonstrating much, though, is he? And then Benrahma, you know, if he's been told he's going and he's in the shop window, wouldn't you want him? Wouldn't you be expecting him to actually be pulling out all the stops to do extremely better? But he's not. You know, so who's going to come and buy him if he keeps putting in the performances that he has been? GP, thank you so much. Stell's better than Jesus. I really appreciate that, mate. Much appreciated. Thank you. John, I was thinking too, Liverpool are trying again to tap up Bowen. Forget that. That's not going to happen. Can you imagine Danny Dyer's grandkids growing up as Scousers? No, I can't. That's a load of rubbish. You know, he's signed the deal now. And, if Bowen is a player that's going to leave anytime soon, we're going to be asking for well over £100 million. Well over that. You know, they can sort of try and tap him up, but it's not going to happen. Let's scroll down. Who else do we have here? Let's scroll down. Mark, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. No rush for a striker, in my opinion. I would prefer to wait for Garassi if we can get him. Well, apparently, according to Garina, I will look into it and find out how close we are to potentially signing Garassi, whether it's now or whether it's in the summer. Usual. Got to go strong against Bristol. Remember, Blackburn reserves kicked our asses not that long ago. That's true. I think we'll put out a team that's good enough to beat them. Fornals, Benrahma. I think Antonio will be back for that game. I think we'll put out a strong team, but I reckon we will get, if we're winning handsomely, then but then let's not forget, that the youngsters have done well in the EFL trophy against lower league opposition. So I kind of expect maybe one or two of the youngsters to get a bit of game time on Sunday. I was going to say LSD there. L&D. If you're looking to sponsor a YouTube website, West Ham website, give me a shout. I had to get that in. Andrew, Mubama needs a moment. Mubama needs a moment fast. Otherwise, I can see Moyes losing patience and farming him out. I think Mubama should have gone out on loan this season. I really, really do. I think it's quite possible that if we can get him to sign on the dotted line, I started the show for those of you that joined late. The breaking news tonight is that contract talks with Divin Mubama have restarted again, which I think is a good sign. And apparently, from what I understand, Divin Mubama wants to make it at West Ham United. He's kind of looked at, and here's the irony, as I said earlier on, he's kind of looked at some of the players that have left West Ham and seen the grass isn't always greener on the other side. What he wants to do is he wants to make it at West Ham. So it sounds like that might be good news. I like him. I want him to succeed. Of course, you want one of your own to succeed without a shadow of a doubt. But at the same time, I think he should have gone out on loan. And if he does sign on the dotted line, it won't surprise me if he goes out on loan for the second half of this season. GP, 50 grand for Coufal would be fair. He has 5 assists. I don't disagree with that. That will put him on par with some of the other defenders that we've got that we recently signed and we got at the club as well. And it's not that far off. I think he's on about 35, 40 grand a week at the moment. Give him a little pay rise. I think it would be right to do so. I don't think he's on strike. That's not my understanding. John, think it would be cheaper getting a decent left back and pushing Emerson further forward. I wouldn't be objecting to that either, to be quite honest with you. But I think Emerson has done absolutely superb as left back. I really had him down only as a left wing back, and I was worried when we signed him. Like, is he really a replacement for Aaron Creswell? He's proved me wrong. I think he's been immense as a left back, but I think it's a good shout, John. Certainly to put him as a left further forward and then buy a left back. That's not a bad shout at all. Andrew, Antonio is a better option than Ings and Mubama at present. Yeah. So it's pronounced Toha. Got it right. Toha, my apologies for pronouncing your name incorrectly all this time. Let's scroll down. Who else? I'll tell you what, why don't we go into a little bit more news and I'll come back to your comments a little bit later on. So a bit of loan news. 4 West Ham United players out on loan were in action over the New Year's fixtures. Freddie Potts, back from injury, played the full 90 minutes for Wycombe Wanderers as they held on to a frantic 3-2 win over Bristol Rovers in League One. He made his first start since a recent injury back in October, and he featured from the start where they took a deserved lead. Wycombe then had a player sent off, and with just over an hour played, but they went on to get into a commanding 3-0 lead. Bristol then, Rovers then pulled 2 goals back, but Wycombe hung on. He's a player that I like, Freddie Potts. He's a defensive midfielder. I've been talking an awful lot about my desire to have Flynn Downs back, and a lot of you have been saying Flynn Downs is not Premier League ready. But this young lad, Freddie Potts, he's out there, he's on loan, he's doing exceptionally well for Wycombe. Look at that. He's come back from an injury and he's straight back into the team, played the whole 90 minutes, and good luck to him as well. I hope Freddie Potts comes back at the end of this season. Let's get that Toha thing on and off. I think I hope Freddie Potts comes back from his loan spell and commands, or tries to get into the West Ham first team squad. He's not going to get game time. We want to back up for Alvarez. Why not someone like him? He's proving his worth. This is what I think. That's why I think Mubama should have done as well. Gone out on loan, prove yourself, mate. Come back and, sort of like try and get into that first team. He's in the first team squad, but get more game time. Good luck to Potts. I think he's doing exceptionally well at Wycombe. And talking of which, Flynn Downs, our other defensive midfielder, out on loan as well at Southampton. They got a draw at the weekend against Norwich City. Downs was once again named in the starting 11, making his 19th appearance for the Championship side. Southampton took the lead on 70 minutes with Adam Armstrong tapping in. Remember him? We were linked to him as well at once upon a time. Adam Armstrong tapped in from West Ham linked Kyle Walker-Peters cross. Another one that we're linked to. Norwich drew level after a short while, making it 1-1. The draw leaves Southampton in 3rd place in the Championship, 4 points behind second place Ipswich Town. They're doing exceptionally well. Other players out on loan. Keenan Apai-Forsan finally got a starting place for Dagenham and Redbridge in a frantic 4-4 draw against Eastleigh. He played for 74 minutes in that game. Now Dagenham are 15th in the National League table, so well done to Keenan for getting his first. He's played in the cup competitions for them, but he hasn't played in the league, so well done to him for finally getting a league start. And finally, goalkeeper Mason Terry and his Concord Rangers side were on the wrong end of a 1-0 defeat to Canvey Island in the Canvey Derby. Didn't even know there was such a thing. Right, I talked about player contracts. Have I got any images? Yes, I do. Player contracts. So we spoke a little bit about Ogbonna earlier on. Angelo Ogbonna. He's been immense in the last 2 games. There is rumour now that apparently he's in line to receive a 1-year extension. Now, look, as I said earlier, I think he's a great player. He's been an immense player for us. But what worries me is that we're giving extensions to a lot of players who are well into their 30s. Ogbonna's 35 now. And I said earlier on, Fabianski's, 38? And several other players in their 30s. And it went up. Antonio, he got a contract extension. What's he, 33, 34? Look, I think Oggy's superb. But I really, really would prefer, to be quite honest with you, to start seeing some youngsters coming through, whether we buy them or whether we get them through the academy. Like I said, last night's game against Brighton, we had 2 youngsters, Kalen Casey and Levi Lang, both central defenders, were on the bench. That's what I want to see moving forward. As much as I think Oggy has been immense, are we going to continue to rely on these players, as they get older and older and older? Does he deserve a new contract? I think I'd like him to stay at the club in some capacity, in the playing capacity. I just don't know. I just don't know. And after the news that I won't do that one just yet. And after the news that Soucek was given a 2.5-year extension, Oggy may be in line. So let's see what happens there. He joined us in 2015 for a fee of £9 million. I think it was from Juventus, I think. And he has been superb. Does he deserve? I don't know. I think I'll leave it to you to decide if you think he deserves a new contract or not. Right. What I'm going to do is take a very, very short break, talk about transfers, then get back onto your comments in a moment. Right. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with Broja because I was making a point about David Moyes and Tim Steidten, and I said I'll come back to that. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to talk about Broja first. Now, when I inquired, is there any transfer stories that are, sort of at least half, anywhere near the truth in terms of who we might be aiming for, etc., etc.? And I was told, no, there aren't any, there is interest in players, of course. And I said, what about Broja again? Apparently we're linked to him and so on and so forth. And I was told no. And here's the comment. It was a statement I was given. They no longer have an interest in Broja. And then I carried on talking and I was told by Sean, you haven't heard what I said. And I went, well, what did you say? And he said, they no longer have an interest in Broja. And I went, what do you mean they? You mean Moyes? And he went, no, they. He suggested that Tim Steidten and David Moyes are working in tandem, hand in hand, on transfers. It's not one person doing one thing and another person wanting to do their own thing. They're working in tandem. Now, I can't remember who it was. Someone in the chat mentioned earlier on that maybe Steidten now understands the type of players Moyes wants to play his style of football. Whether we agree with that style of football or not is another matter. But what Steidten is now doing is he's facilitating David Moyes to get the kind of players that Moyes believes we need in order to continue improving at West Ham United. And I think that's a massive shift in stance in terms of what we've all been led to believe, what we've been told. And I said that I think the two men were working together anyway in summertime. And I think that comment, when Sean, reiterated that word, they don't believe. It sounds like to me now, Steidten and Moyes are in tandem. They're working alongside each other. They're working for the better of West Ham United. They're working towards improving West Ham in this transfer window and future windows as well. That's a massive shift for David Moyes, who we believe only wants to do things his way, only wants the players that he wants, won't listen to anybody else, etc. And I dare say in the past that's been true. But I think now, even Moyes, now someone talked about earlier about getting to the next level. I think David said about, we need to be next level. Everyone needs a helping hand to get to the next level. And it seems to me that Moyes and Steidten working hand in hand in order to help us achieve that next level is what's beginning to happen. So when it came to Broja, and I went, come on, apparently all these stories are out there again. And I was told, no, they have no interest. We've got no interest in Broja anymore. We're looking at other targets, is what I was told. And I think that's quite interesting. That's a quite interesting shift, when we're talking about what's happening with Moyes. Is there going to be conflict with Steidten, etc., etc.? And they said about Broja, he's no longer a suitable target for West Ham United. We're looking for others that will be more suitable targets. Now, I don't have the names of any targets. Garassi could be one. The lad from Bournemouth, whose name skips me at the moment, could be another one. But will we get these players in January? I don't think we will. I think absolutely in the summertime, we're going to be a lot more careful. Moyes has had his fingers burnt. I still don't understand the whole Skamaka thing. It's not that he's a bad player, but he just didn't fit into our system that Moyes wanted to play. And I really didn't quite get that. We went for Skamaka last summer. I was cock-a-hoop. I was really happy that we got an Italian international and all that sort of stuff, but when you kind of looked at the way he, his details, sort of, the kind of way his game style, etc., you kept saying to yourself, something doesn't fit. And I remember talking in the summer when we bought Skamaka and saying maybe Moyes is going to start playing a different style of football. Of course, he wasn't going to start playing a different style of football. He just wanted Skamaka to fit into his style of football, and it was never going to work. So I think it's interesting now that we've got to the point where with Steinen in place, he's going to facilitate. I think someone said in the chat, he's going to help facilitate David Moyes to get the kind of players that we need in order to progress. And someone also alluded to Lingard in a jokey way. If we've got the right players and the players that can compete, like I said earlier on, that can compete with the 11 starting players coming from the bench being as good as the players that are starting, then maybe, we might start seeing a little bit more flowing football, a little bit less of Moyes ball that we call it, or low ball, or whatever you want to call it. And maybe we can have a squad that will be improving stage by stage. So I think it's interesting. I think the whole thing about, the comment that I was given about Broja and being told that we no longer have an interest from both Moyes and Steinen, I think is a seismic move for West Ham United. Seismic in so many ways. Steinen has got a say in what happens at the club. Moyes is listening to what's happening in terms of transfers and so on. So I think it's really, really interesting, that comment. So let's see what happens when we move forward and see what players that Steinen and Moyes may come up with. Right. Let's go back to one of the players that we know is virtually gone. From my understanding, in the next 24 to 48 hours, Thilo Kehrer will be on loan at Monaco. It's disappointing, to be honest with you. He's another player that I kind of liked. But if you remember, when he started at West Ham United, he had a series of errors in him. I think the own goal that he got blamed for against Spurs, Son was right behind him. He would have scored anyway, but he got blamed for that. And there were a few errors that he made. And he got, stick from West Ham fans who thought that we thought initially the £10 million that we spent for a German international coming from PSG, we thought we were stealing him, weren't we? But unfortunately, it hadn't quite worked out. And I feel sorry for Kehrer. I like him. I think he's a passionate footballer. And it's a shame it's not worked out. Now, my understanding is that Moyes never wanted Kehrer in the first place. David Moyes wanted a bigger player. He's got the old-fashioned view of what a central defender should be: tall, big, etc. And that's the kind of player that he wants. And my understanding is if you remember going that far back around that summer transfer window when we signed Kehrer, what have I got there? Dirrell. That should say Deal, by the way. My misspelling for doing it so quickly, so I'll take it off not to be even more embarrassed. When we were looking at signing Kehrer, that was at the time Diop wanted to leave and Dawson also wanted to leave, so we were going to be left short. I think Moyes had in his mind, he had a number of central defenders that we were going to work with, and all of a sudden he found himself, potentially being two central defenders short, and it felt as if it was like a last minute rather do this than nothing. I like Kehrer. Has he been great for West Ham? I think he's been all right. I don't think he's pulled up any trees, but I'm sad to see him go. But the deal is going to Monaco on a loan to buy deal. And if I don't know the number of games that he's going to have or number of appearances that he has to make. But if he gets over a certain threshold, there'll be an obligation for Monaco to buy him. And my understanding is they're not going to pay much more than what we pay for him. So if we get our money back for him, I guess, that's fair enough. Right. Aguerd. And we've been hearing all the noise from the Saudi boys that their bids are going in. Even tonight, updates that bids are definitely going in for Aguerd from Saudi team. Now, here's the interesting thing. When I asked what Saudi team, no one knew. When I asked how much they're willing to pay, no one knew. When I asked who's making all the noises, agents are. So this is another. I don't know how much of this is going to be corroborated over the next few days, but it sounds to me that my understanding is Aguerd's agent has been chomping at getting Aguerd out of West Ham United since the summer. Apparently, he was pushing for his player to be, for clubs to make bids for him in the summer. I think Saudi clubs again, and he's doing it again. It seems that he's hell bent on getting Aguerd out. Now, depending on what social media column you read, some are saying Aguerd is unhappy at West Ham, doesn't like David Moyes' style of football, doesn't want to be part of it and wants to leave. And then on the other hand, you hear Aguerd is absolutely 100% happy at West Ham United, playing in the Premier League, and has no interest in leaving West Ham. So it sounds to me that this is much more agent talk than it is a reality. But again, proof will be in the pudding. If any team turns up and starts putting a bid in for him, then basically Moyes doesn't want Aguerd to go. He likes Aguerd. We chased Aguerd for 2 seasons before we managed to buy him. That was one of the players that Moyes really wanted. He really wanted him to be part of West Ham United. So Moyes will be very reluctant to let him go. However, he will let him go only if we have a ready-made replacement, and that's not Eric Dier, by the way. If we've got a ready-made replacement that can come in and be as good as, if not better than, Aguerd, then we will let him go, but we will want every penny that we paid for him. So we'd be expecting £30 million, if not more. So it's going to be interesting what happens. It sounds like agent noise to me over and above anything else. Said Benrahma. We've heard over the last few days that, there's a number of teams interested in Said Benrahma. Some Premier League teams, Wolves and Fulham, are apparently expressing an interest in him, but also Saudi teams as well. And we've also heard that Lyon are preparing a bid for him. Look, we know the relationship between him and David Moyes has not been great. We bought him for just over £20 million. General consensus was apparently he was the last purchase by Sullivan hoisted upon David Moyes, another player that apparently David Moyes didn't really want. But I guess when I looked at the stats, I was actually really surprised, to be quite honest with you. He's made 154 appearances in all competitions for West Ham United, scored just 24 goals. That's a goal every 6.5 games. 19 assists, an assist every 8 games. Compared to, say, Jared Bowen, 183 appearances, 53 goals. That's a goal in every 3.5 games. 26 assists, 1 in every 7 games. So you could see there's a difference, certainly in the goals tally. He's not been consistent, Said Benrahma. He's a player that I like. I like flair players. I like players that sort of show off, but only if there's an end product to it. But it's not been good for him. He's 28 years of age now. Like I said, a number of teams are apparently interested in him, but I think West Ham United are not going to be interested in selling him to either Fulham or Wolves, and they will probably encourage a bid from Lyon. A £15 million bid is my understanding. If we get offered that, that's what he'll go for. I don't think West Ham United would relish him going to another Premier League club. But at this stage, no one has approached West Ham to make a bid. Lyon are the closest, is my understanding, who are preparing a bid for him. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Right. What about Eric Dier? I asked and asked again and asked again, and I was told we don't know anything about this. No interest has been. Now, apparently it's been confirmed by an ITK tonight that we are most definitely interested in getting him. And because he's only got 6 months to go on his contract, we could even get him for nothing. Now, I'm not so sure, to be quite honest with you. 29 years of age. Yeah, it could be another resurrection of a footballer's career, a bit like Craig Dawson. If he comes in and does a good job for us, would you deny him coming to West Ham? But a lot of it just doesn't balance for me. We don't do business with Spurs. The business that we've done in the past has always been a little bit not very good. So yeah, I can't see Daniel Levy even allowing him to go for almost nothing would be remotely interested in letting him come to West Ham United. So I'm not so sure. I guess the advantage is, yes, he's Premier League proven, Premier League experience. He can play in centre back, but also we talked about Edson Alvarez earlier on and about what would happen if Alvarez, got a another suspension or injury or whatever. What would happen there? Would Dier be a reasonable replacement for him in the centre of midfield? It's quite possible. Now, Dier, I didn't know this, played for David Moyes back in 2011 when he went out on loan to Everton back then. So, look, do I think it will happen? No. Do I think it's possible? Anything is possible. And do I think he'd fit in? I think he'd fit into a David Moyes system probably better than we think. Do I want him? Not necessarily, to be quite honest with you. I think he's all right as a footballer. Would he be any better than what we have? I don't think he will. And if David Moyes is true to his word, I want to get players in that are as good as, if not better than the players that we've already got, then I don't really put Eric Dier in that category. Now, there are other stories out there. And what I did say to you a few weeks ago was, I'm not going to talk to you about every single player that we're linked to if I don't think I can get any decent information on them in terms of sort of like, how close is this, or is this anywhere near? Now, the reason why I talked about Broja is to make the point about Steiden and Moyes. The reason why I've talked about Dier is because, the link to David Moyes way back in 2011. Otherwise, I don't even think I would have mentioned them. All the other links that we've got at the moment, they're rumours. And I've tried to get some corroboration on them. And I've been told that at this moment in time, we're focusing on who's going to be leaving West Ham United rather than who's going to be coming in. Now, we expect Kehrer, as I said, over the next 24 to 48 hours to be leaving. That's when I think our business will start. Do I have any names? Unfortunately, I don't have anything airtight at this moment in time. So let's go into your comments. Sharky, Arsenal fans sulking about our win against them last week. Music to all our ears. Let's scroll right down. Andrew, Kehrer, Fornals, Cornet, Ings, Benrahma, 50 million transfer funds from these sales. Let's see. Kehrer on loan, nothing for him. Fornals won't go till the summer. Cornet, 6 or 7 million. Ings, that's another one I forgot to mention. Apparently, there's interest in Danny Ings. I mentioned last week from some championship sides, but will he want to go to a championship side? Apparently, there's interest in both Benrahma and Danny Ings from Wolves. That would be really interesting, wouldn't it? Do I think Wolves can afford him? No, I don't think they can afford his wages on 100 odd grand a week. They were struggling to try and get enough money to sign Cresswell last summer. So do I think that they could get Ings and Benrahma? No. But anyway, let's go back. Kehrer on loan. I think $500,000 is what we'll get for the loan fee. Fornals won't go to the summer. Cornet, if we do sell him, 6 or 7 million. Ings, if we do sell him, 6 or 7, 8. Let's be generous. 10 million. That's 15, 16 million. Benrahma will be the big money, about 15. That'll be, if we manage to sell those players, I think we'd get about 30 million in. Mind you, we should still have about 20 million in our transfer funds left over from the summer, is my understanding. So in a way, you're absolutely right, Andrew. 50 million transfer funds. Jack, we needed Cornet on the pitch against Brighton with Fornals and Benny. We had no pace whatsoever. I totally agree. Trudge, we will get 20 million for that. Look, I've been generous. I've said 30. Let's scroll down. Ironics. Yes, we should play our old dashing style and kick the arse out of the teams while we sit in 13th position. Clive, hit the like. Please, if you're new to the channel, do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. It does help, so please do that if you like what you've heard so far. Let's scroll down. Peter, funny how it's taken 2 months to announce Soucek deal. I don't know why it's taken that long. I genuinely don't know why. I don't understand. Maybe, I don't know. Been doing quite well all season, so why not announce it sooner? Don't understand that logic. John, Cornet should have worn 99 on his back when we signed him. Chocolate makes everything better. Thomas, Cornet will probably go for nothing. There's no way on God's earth he's ever going to pass a medical. This is it. I don't think he will. I think this injury has left a legacy, unfortunately. Jonathan, I fear we're not in a position to lose big players like Paqueta now or in the summer. We don't have the succession planning in place yet. I agree with that. But if there's anyone that's likely to be a big player leaving in the summer, it is likely to be Paqueta. If we can persuade him to stay, and as others have mentioned, add to the squad that we've got, the good 11 that we've got, then why not, go for fourth place without a shadow of a doubt. Martin, I don't think the Premier League is for Werner, and he doesn't seem to know the offside rule. I'm not sold on him. I think he's been doing really well, apparently, in Germany, but I'm not sold on him. James, evening, Mr. B, punctually. Good evening to you, James. I hope you're well. Let's scroll down. What else have we got here? Luke, Dier could be covered for Alvarez. He did the defensive midfield for England once. Yeah, I think he did that for Tottenham as well a few times, didn't he? But I just don't think Levy will work with us. Samuel, is Kudus really injured? Apparently he is. He's got a mild hamstring injury, which would have kept him out of the game against Brighton anyway. Andrew, Emerson and Coufal have been excellent this season, but they're both the wrong side of 30. New fullbacks are a must. Don't disagree with that. Certainly backups at the very, very least. Dale, good evening to you. If we lost both them defenders and then got in Dier, I'd stop watching and may as well sacked him. There's no point having him if that happens. I hope for a good window, but only if we let Tim do it all. I think what I've said, I hope you heard it earlier on, I think what I've said is what's happening. And I think that's what happened. That's where we eventually got to. I think Tim Steidten has got a lot of credit for bringing in the likes of Alvarez and Kudus. I think he's standing probably with Moyes, certainly with David Sullivan, has gone quite high. So Moyes is now working alongside him and saying, all right, this is what I need. I need a left back. I need a centre back. I need a left winger. I need this. And this is the style of footballer that I want. And Steidten is going out there and probably looking for that kind of player. So I do agree. That's why, again, I don't think that the Eric Dier story has got a lot of substance to it, to be quite honest with you. Good evening, Jason. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Jack. It was out of order that Kudus couldn't play, but Mo Salah was allowed to play for Liverpool. It's a joke. And this is the, if FIFA make a rule, then they say that's the rule for everybody. But unfortunately, individual teams can pick and choose. They could decide, yes, he's allowed to play. Someone said earlier on about Onana playing for Man United on, was it the 14th of January or something like that? Do forgive me. I do try and pick out as many comments as I can, but I'm going to have to miss some of them. NWO, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Benny ain't ever been good enough. I think he's been good, but not consistently good. Trudge. Cornet obviously caught joking around wearing a kilt doing Moyes impressions. John, I hope you're well, mate. Happy New Year to you. Part of the reason some bench players are not up to the first team level may be that the first team level has gone up rather than the bench players level gone up. Kind of what I alluded to, rather than bench players level gone down. Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair comment. We've got, like I asked earlier on, would you consider Benrahma or Fornals to be at the level of Paqueta, or at the level of Kudus, or at the level of Bowen? Their levels have gone up, haven't they? Good point, John. John Elliott. Why not play Emerson left wing and buy a decent left back? Will work out cheaper for the club. I absolutely agree. Now, there's a rumor going around about the Chelsea youngster that we're apparently interested in, but even that has gone pretty quiet. L&D. We are also meant to have one of the best young Brazilian kids. Yes, Luizão. Now, it's interesting because he's been getting a lot of plaudits for the under-21s, Luizão. We bought him summer before last. And he's been getting a lot of applause as a centre-back. But it's interesting, he wasn't selected to be on the bench on Tuesday night. He went for Kalen Casey and Levi Lang. So does that mean Moyes thinks that Casey and Lang are better than Luizão? But Luizão has been getting quite a lot of plaudits. Melissa, I still believe in Benrahma, though. I think we all want to believe that he could be. It's the consistency that I think a lot of people have realised he doesn't have, unfortunately. Jonathan, the only way the kids get in game at Bristol is if we're throwing the cup game. No. I think we will see one or two of them coming from the bench. Jerry, Bone won't go to Liverpool. He'll be too frightened of them putting him on bricks and nicking his boots. Hammer it. We can't honestly think that if Benny, Fornals, Ings and Creswell got more game time by rotation, they would be on a par with the starting 11. Standards have improved and they aren't good enough now. It's a harsh reality, isn't it? Jack, happy we could tell why Benny and Fornals don't start. We could tell why Benny and Fornals don't start. We saw it against Brian. Yeah. Lord Patrick, am I the only one not wearing pants? What you do behind closed doors, mate, is completely up to you. Andy, do we have a recall? No, we don't, unfortunately. Someone asked that recently. We don't have a recall on him. He's on loan for the whole season. Steve, good evening to you. Happy New Year to you. And Betty's in the back room. The true culture. Good evening to you. So, West Ham boys. I think Antonio is the kind of player that defenders seems to always try to double and triple down on him in both the Premier League and internationals, but he gives them trouble. He does. When he's on form, absolutely, totally, don't disagree with that at all. But he's been so off form for so long. I'm hoping he comes back from his injury and is the old Antonio for the next 6 months. I really do. Peter, isn't Forsan the one who makes Ronnie Corbett look like a giant? He's very short. Yes, he's about 5'6", something like that. But apparently very, very decent central midfielder. Montana. I'll give him an extension too, but Fabianski extension made no sense. We need a new young keeper to usurp Areola, let alone Fabianski. Let's go for Trafford when Burnley get relegated. Good shout that. Look, you've got to give credit where credit's due. The likes of Fabianski and other, the older players in the team, they've all done exceptionally well. But unfortunately, there are times when you've got to let them go and go with younger players. Bill, spicy rum and Coke time. What spice rum do you drink, mate? Be interested to know. Andy, Louis Alstel, what's happened with him? Just mentioned him. I know Moyes weren't keen, but he will have 30. He'll be 30 before he gets a chance. Well, like I said, Louis Al is getting decent plaudits in the under-21s, but it's interesting that Kalen Casey and Levi Lang were called into the side last night. Gart, good evening to you. Mubama needs a chance in the first team with Paquetá, Kudus and Bowen, and against the bottom half Premier League side. Interesting point. I get why you say that. And it is interesting. When he came on when we played Forest and he had half an hour, he was pretty decent. Absolutely. Ironix, Broja has gone down rapidly. Absolutely. GJ, good evening to you. Still getting very trendy with the upbeat sounds, bro. They've been, well, yeah. Actually, that's a new one, I think. Thank you for that. Trudge. Jonathan Tah is a step up from our usual signings. Yes, there's rumour, but I can't get that corroborated, because the reason why I haven't mentioned Tah is because we've been linked to him for the last 2.5 years and still nothing's happened. Jack, how bad Moyes' tactics is when we're sitting pretty in the table and a round of 16 in Europe, but yeah, don't like his football, but we can't get what we want in life, can we? Look, we all want fantastic football, don't we? But in years, I've supported, well, I'm sure a lot of you have supported West Ham for years and years and years. And there have been, times when we have played really good football and always the team that other teams relish to play. Why? There was that statement that I can't remember where it came from. West Ham are a great footballing side, but they've got a soft underbelly, which meant that clubs, was it one of the old, is it Paisley or before him that said about West Ham, great side, but we know we're going to get 3 points whenever we go to London. That's West Ham. Great at football, play it the right way, etc., etc. But unfortunately, always give teams wins. Clive, what about Stephen Bergwijn? Anyone rate him? No. Hammerette, do you think the board is still keen to sell Paquetá to raise funds for players? Look, I've said this before. We're starting in now. We're going to have to get accustomed to whenever we have a class player, and I know it didn't really start with Declan Rice, but that's the platform that we're going to be using from now on. What Steiden does is he gets players in, builds them up, they become multi-million pound deals that we sell and then use the money to bring in new talent. Now, we've done that with the Declan Rice money. If Paquetá's the next one in the summertime to help us improve the squad, I'd rather he stays. But if we sell him for 80 million, 85 million, we'll use that money to get 2 players, maybe 3 players in to replace him and improve the squad again. That's the way we're going to go. We're going to have to get used to that because I think that's the roadmap that we have for the club going forward. Let's scroll down. GJ again. All of our midfield is up for sale. We're in the market for a rugby player with a hell of a Andy, if Sullivan sells Paquetá, we all know where that money is going, sadly. Well, no, you can't really say that because I was one of those who used to say, we don't invest money. But it looks like we do invest money. We've always wasted our money. With Steiden in place now, he's there to make sure the money's spent wisely. So yeah, I think it's unfair, Andy, to say that. Well, if you're alluding to it not being spent on the squad, I don't agree. That's the name, Solanke. Bournemouth won't let Solanke go unless silly money. Yeah, I still don't know. I'm still not 100% convinced on Solanke. Someone tell me why I'm not convinced on Solanke. Maybe I'm wrong. Jack, once Man City goes back in for him, we're going to struggle to keep him, but we need to invest well. Once we do lose our key players, that's all what matters. And exactly that. Look, if Man City are interested in him, they will go for him. We're not going to let someone like him leave in January, but if they go for him in the summer, yeah, and they come in with big money, then I expect him to go. Mark, Andy Armit, it will go back into the club. Sullivan has a board and shareholders to answer to. Good point. Good evening, it's me, Sam. Expect quite a few outs and only a couple of cheap loans for squad fillers. I don't think we're getting squad fillers. I think Moyes is pretty adamant on that. No point doing that. No point letting the likes of Fornals or Benrahma or anyone else leave in this January window in order to get similar in, even if they are sort of loan deals. I think we're looking to improve, and we want to use every window to make sure that we're bringing in an improvement on what we already have. Hammer it. A couple of squad fillers are fine for this window so long as they're good quality and can step up. No point signing someone 20-year-old that we won't use. Absolutely. Ryan the Iron, good evening to you. Hey, Stelly Savalas, I've been making yachts at home. Sales have been going through the roof. Are we at that time, are we? Is it happy hour now? Good evening to you, Ryan. Sean, gutted Kehrer's leaving. There's a decent player in there. I agree. I do agree with you. I'm gutted too. John, Steinen must have read a few Michael Crichton books. He knows how dinosaurs work. Well, if it's going to work for us, then all good. Shroj, Aguerd seemed to have such a good attitude. Shame he isn't up to it. The physicality of the Premier League. Do you not? It's interesting. What do I think of him? I think he's a decent player. Can he improve? Well, it's his second season. Maybe he should have done by now. Good evening, Lee. I like Kehrer, and a new manager might love him. For us to let him go tells me Moyes will probably be here next season. Moyes will be here next season. That's the show I did last week. I'm pretty certain. I know it's gone quiet this week, but I'm pretty certain that the board, well, I did say the board and Moyes will start discussing a new contract anytime soon. Whether it'll be announced anytime soon is another matter. I want Aguerd at the club, Ironics. His agent sounds corrupt. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we hear all these rumours, don't we, about why players are going to leave. They don't like David Moyes and they don't like this and they don't like that, and I think in this case, I think it is very much a case of the agent has got Saudi money ringing in his ears and he wants a piece of it. Andrew, Kevin De Bruyne back from injury. Hopefully Paquetá interest will disappear. It will. We won't sell him in this window, but certainly in the summer, I expect bids to go in for him. Daniela, Saudi League going tits up soon. I don't know. Happened in China, didn't it? That their league went all over the place. I'm not sure they got a lot of money, Daniela. They've got a lot of money to keep it going. Even if they don't get crowds, they don't care, do they? They want to build up a brand. E. Davis, don't understand what people expect these players to do in such a rigid system. Hoof it, I guess. We did hoof it against Brighton, and I don't know why we did, because we can play it on the floor. We've demonstrated that we can. So I don't know what was going on there. And Areola, for all the good that he was doing in goal in terms of saving all those shots, his distribution, it used to be his distribution was really good, but even that's begun to suffer. Ironics. Don't want him unless it's just because we need another homegrown. You're talking about Dier. Mikey, good evening to you. Happy New Year, mate. I hope you're well. Eric Dier, a classic Moyes choice. The club's a joke. Come on. We don't know. I don't believe it's true, to be quite honest with you. I actually don't think it's going to happen. GJ, I hear Transport for London will be our new shirt sponsor. Moyes loves to park the bus. Mikey, Benny not even League One. Get him off as soon as possible. Give Cornet his spot instead. I wish I knew what was going on with Cornet. If it is about the injury, maybe. I don't know. Mark, Dino, I've been taking the piss out of my spud mates for years. They would proper put egg on my face. Imagine if he came, though, Mark. Imagine if he came. All right, it's me, half glass full, man. Imagine if he came and was absolute dynamite for West Ham United. Imagine even in an interview, halfway through the loans spell, he went, I've always been West Ham. Support them as a kid. Love it here. And he becomes on the next Craig Dawson. What then? They'd have egg on their faces again, wouldn't they? All right, I'm dreaming. I should stay off the drugs. Let's scroll down. E. Davis again. How are we still talking about Broja? This is wild. ACL, and he looks half the player he was years ago. Absolutely, we've moved on from him, so we're not going for that. People keep talking about where is it? I've lost the comment now. Napoli trying to sign Kilman Kilman. You got to remind me. My mine is blank on that name at the moment. So tell me who he is. I should know, but remind me. Let's scroll down. Hamilton, good evening to you. Wouldn't mind us tapping into the Championship for some of the outstanding talents. Clark from Sunderland and Davis from Ipswich. Yeah, but they're doing well, aren't they? Well, certainly Ipswich are. But will they want to let any of their players go if they're trying to sort of vie for promotion? Thomas, really gets me that people can't see you can play good football and win games. The only way you can win games is to keep shithousing them. Really gets me that people can't see you can play good football and win games. The only way you can win games is to keep shithousing them. We all like to play good football, don't we? Will it be under Moyes? I don't know. Black Country, you're very late, mate. Bloody hell, 2 hours in. I hope you're very well. Taking a note out of your leaf, no clock or watch. Happy New Year to you, mate. I hope you're well. I hope you had a good one. And thank you for joining. Peter, might as well have subs working in hospitality at the club, as they don't move. Mikey, just like to say that I don't moan often, and however, people who defend Moyes to her hilt are the same people stuck in a bored and sad and pathetic sexless marriage or for life. I need to go and talk to my other half. Adam, Cornet is going to be one of them West Ham mysteries. It is a pity. We'll probably only find out what is up when Cornet leaves West Ham United. Mark, if we buy defensive midfield cover for Alvarez, do we sell Downs to Southampton in the summer? Quite possibly. A lot of people don't rate him. I like Downs. I thought he did okay for us last season when he came on, cameo roles, etc. I quite like him, but maybe I'm missing something there. Andrew, Callum Marshall looks special. We'll be interested to see how well his loan goes. Yeah, he's apparently gonna go out on loan now. Update on that. Callum Marshall, we're looking to improve his contract. We don't want to fall into the same situation as we have done with other youngsters. And then once he signs that contract, he's another player that's apparently, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but we are looking to send him out on loan. Emerson is 29, I think. I think so, yeah. Hammers Mikey, touche, as are the ones that cannot bring themselves to give any credit to the manager when we do well. Let's scroll down. Lee, we need a few great players like Paqueta and Kudus. We don't need just all right players. We have too many of them. And this is it, isn't it? This is what we've been talking about, isn't it? This is exactly it. We need players But I talked about this again the other day. The problem with West Ham United, are we a club at this? Are we at a club now where we can have, say, 15, 16 top quality players who are going to be happy to sit on the bench? This is our problem. We're not a Man City and a team like that where you've got 20 quality players and they know they're going to be benched, half the time. They'll get game time here, there, and everywhere. West Ham United, when we buy a quality player, they expect to play. They expect to be part of the first 11. They don't expect to be sitting on the bench waiting to get game time. And this is the big problem at the moment. We've got 11 quality players. We've got one or two that maybe can come in and won't be too bad. But then, the rest are a level below, aren't they? Or as someone else alluded to, I think John Expat alluded to, the quality in the first 11 has gone up. The quality in our subs, in our squad, hasn't necessarily gone up as well. So if we go out and buy all these quality players, are they going to be happy to sit on a West Ham bench? I'd like to think so, because we should be competing on all fronts then, being in all competitions and so on. Potts looked excellent. He does look excellent. Who's Kieran Dyer, Peter? That is Kieran Dyer. What photo are you looking at, or are you just winding me up? Saw that Dyer regrets Peter signing for us, which is a joke with his injury record. He hasn't signed for us. He won't sign for us. Cut-off date was January the 1st. TV premiere affect us by moving the game to January 2nd. Absolutely. We shouldn't have allowed that. But anyway. Brian, good evening to you. Stel, do you believe that if we bring in a proper left winger and maybe back up for Alvarez, we can challenge for top 6? I absolutely do. We do need backup for a few players. Alvarez is one of them. I think we need backup for both the fullbacks as well. Seem to be all right in central defence-ish. We've got plenty of players in midfield. But yes, I do, Brian. If we get... I would love to get 2 players in this window, whether it be a defender or whether it be someone that can play in central midfield. Eric Dyer rings a bell, and a player on the left wing, a dynamic, pacey left winger. Jesse Lingard and Eric Dyer. Well, there you go. But seriously, if we do get 2 players in, a defensive-minded player, whether a defender or central defensive midfielder, and a left winger, I think it will make a massive difference to our team. And I absolutely do think then we should be in a position to be competing for top 6. Of course, so long as we don't get big serious injuries. True culture. Based on West Ham team performance this season, with Kudus doing so well, which and how many other positions do you think needs players to improve the team? Well, look, when it comes to the summertime, I do think we need, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I think we need ironically, we need about 5 players at the same level as Kudus, at the same level as Paqueta, at the same level as Bowen, at the same level as Alvarez. We need about 5 players to really make us truly a force to be reckoned with. We do need backup for our fullbacks. We do need another central defender, certainly in the summertime. We do need backup for Alvarez. And of course, we do need a striker, and then we'll be formidable. Sean, that would be some kind of dispensation. Happy National Association has probably sanctioned it. What did Happy say? Fresh, Onana is allowed to play. Yeah, but that is special. That is especially how late that dispensation is. Andrew, if Everton were to go down, maybe look to go back in for Onana, starting to look the player we expected to see. Good shout. But I don't think Everton are going to go down. They're doing exceptionally well. Nearly caught up. Lee, evening all. I'm on the chat live, but catching up with the beginning of the show. Happy New Year to you. Left inverted winger and wing back cover needed now. Striker in the summer. Lee, thank you for joining, mate. And I totally agree. Mikey, all that youth on the bench against Brighton, the poor sods don't even get 30 seconds. Watching the turd rubbish, talk about kicking the teeth. Well, 2 of those players were defenders. We didn't need any defenders to come on. One of them was a central midfielder, Lewis Orford, and then Mubama came on. So he did use one of the 4. Alan, the trouble with our fans is we fall in love with anyone who plays for us, but we need to harden up. If a player is not cutting it anymore, then they need to be replaced by a player that can help us. I agree with that. We're all going to fall in love with Kudus. We're all falling in love with Paqueta. But we know that when the door comes when someone comes knocking on the door and they want to buy him, we're going to lose our shit. And then, so long as we get as good as, if not better. Hammeret, Onana at Toffees wanted more wages. He did. His sister was his agent. They got greedy. We were close to signing him, but then Everton came in and paid more money. And now look at the trouble there. And Delton. If we want to progress, we have to go for a win, even if top players are not available. Don't disagree with that. I don't think in the first half of the game against Brighton, we went out to sort of hold out for a draw. We started okay, but we just ran out of steam. We just didn't have any idea. They came out better than us in the second half, and as some people said, they probably deserved to have won that game. Jonathan, this Moyes in now is not a binary question. We can win with good football. Look at the rest of the league, and we can win with shit football. It's not a one is a win and one is relegation. I don't disagree with that. I totally do agree with it. But ironically, some of our football this season I've enjoyed. I enjoyed the win against Brighton. I enjoyed the win against Man United. I enjoyed the 2 wins against Arsenal. I think we have played some decent football throughout this season, but not consistently so. Good evening, Scott. I hope you're well, mate. Happy New Year to you. I hope you're well. Delton, if Mubama is to progress, he needs to go a good coach and a better manager. He needs to go out on loan, to be quite honest with you. I think that's how we'll progress. Scott, if Tim gets this window right, we could do very well, finish top 6, win Europa. Our 11 are very good, but a few tweaks could make us special. Absolutely agree. Ironics. Solanke is currently in form, but he won't stay there. This is maybe why I've got a question mark over him. I think he is doing great, but will he stay there? Good point. Excuse me. Hammerit, Solanke is perfect for us. I think for Moyes and under a number of managers, he could sign tomorrow and be playing by Sunday. It's the cost of him that is the bummer. We won't be getting a striker until the summer, I think. Peter, still looking into your crystal ball, how much longer do you think Sullivan will stay at the club? Until he dies. Until he dies. He wants to hand the club over to his family. Andrew, finishing up, we always, we've been hearing for so long about the Saudi money, about the Qatari money, about Americans, etc. What will be interesting will be to see who will buy the 10% shares that David Gold's daughter, Vanessa Gold. Will be interesting to see who will buy the 10% shares that Vanessa Gold has got up for sale. Now, there's speculation. I think I did a show 3 or 4 weeks ago about an American. I can't remember his name. The one that does that, some company that does gaming, etc. Apparently has an interest. But we all thought, didn't we? A lot of people thought that, when the Czech money came in, that he was going to go and buy West Ham outright. That hasn't materialized. He's not even interested in the 10% shares that Vanessa Gold is selling. But apparently there's interest from this American billionaire. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens from there on in, whether this American wants more shares or if he's just buying a small stake in West Ham United. But other than that, I think Sullivan... Excuse me, people. I think Sullivan is here for the long term. I think he will hand the club over to his family if he can. Stephen, if the players don't like playing for Moyes, then why have then they have a funny way of showing it? Well, I think some players are absolutely relishing. Bowen has said he's loving playing the football that he's playing at the moment. West Ham forever. Good evening to you. What's one player you want West Ham to sign? I don't know. I should have done my homework because I was asked recently to sort of list because I talked about, I think we're likely to be going for a left winger, an attacking left winger. And I was asked, well, who would you get? And I didn't do my homework. So it will be a left-sided winger, an attacking with pace, a winger with pace that can really fit into this side. But a name, you could probably tell me better than I could. Scott, I think the ideal striker for us is Jonathan David, but he's untouchable right now. You've been talking about him for some time, haven't you, mate? In fairness to you. Alan, in all honesty, Stel, if you were Paqueta or any other player, would you want to go to a team that could be in trouble if the charges are proved? He's going through charges himself, but theirs are a lot worse. That's a really, really, really good point. Yeah, really good point. We don't know what's going to happen to Man City, do we? Because they're trying to keep it at arm's length. But sooner or later, that FFP is going to come up and bite him in the arse, isn't it? So that's a really, really good point. and that could be our blessing, really, because if we do well this season and Man City do get charged, or if any of the charges stick, then why would Paqueta want to go there? Really good point. Huang from Wolves would be another good shout. Interesting shout. Delton. I'm not sure Moyes wants squad players to challenge his favourites who can cover distances instead of technique. I think, people are asking, and I've been asking for quite a long time, why does Moyes not make substitutions earlier in the game? Why does Moyes take forever? Why does Moyes only make one sub? Look at against Brighton, we only made one sub. Possibly because he's looking on the bench and he's thinking to himself, I've got players there and I've got the players out on the pitch. Who is better on the bench or as good as on the bench as I've got out there? It's probably what he's thinking, and I think if Moyes did have another 3 or 4 quality players, it might just make his life a lot easier when he has to start changing players around. Mikey, he's just been a little bit unfortunate, and tonight he probably could have given some minutes. We like Maxi. He's not really been able to have an opportunity due to what we have in those positions. I didn't believe that when Moyes said it, to be quite honest with you. I really didn't. There's something else going on there, as I alluded to earlier in the show. Caleb, good evening to you. I believe a Kudus-like force will change our entire squad. Imagine 2 players who can run at defenses, make them crumble. That will be golden. I 100% totally agree with you. Daniela, maybe our new shirt sponsor should be Marmite. No one likes us. Well, some like us, some don't. Delton, Soucek, Benjamin, Benrahma, and Fornals are average players with no invention. And yet Soucek gets picked time and time and time again. Andrew, Gibbs, White, Kilman are the kind of players we should be seriously looking at. Scott, I wonder if Cornet is still unfit. What I alluded to earlier on. I didn't know that Johnson was hurt at the or the beginning of the season until just recently. So this may be the same situation. Ironics, Callum. Yeah, I think you're right. Which is why Cornet's not getting the game time that we're hoping for him to get. Callum Marshall is a rare talent. I really hope so. I'm going to do. I've been reading up on Callum Marshall. I've got a few details on him, and I'm going to do a small show about him later on in the week because I hope he is that rare talent. But then I guess a lot of us were saying the same about Mubama. But yeah, Marshall could be the next level up for us. Jack, Dumfries seems to be a great player. So why would you like to see him at our club? Hammeret's a question for you. You can answer that. Irons Lady, good evening to you. The lad Murphy at Newcastle was looking for a move back south. Interesting shout. Peter, both Spurs and Arsenal fans say we mean nothing to them. Of course they do. But they got peed off when we beat them. Of course they did. And we'll beat them again. We'll do the double over Spurs and the treble over Arsenal. Lee, I was surprised how good Elanga is at Forest. Absolutely agree. He tore Coufal a new one, but I'm sure he'll cost a small fortune now. Yeah, that's one that we kind of potentially missed out on. Early doors football ITV, good evening to you. We need to bring in a striker, that's for sure. I don't disagree with that, but I really don't think we're going to get a striker in this window, but certainly in summer, I hope. Let's scroll down a little bit and try and catch up. Epic. Moyes doesn't know how to win a game if he only has players who follow his tactics. He needs a player like Kudus or Lingard who is free to do what he wants. But that's part of Moyes' tactic. That's the irony, Epic. That is part of Moyes' tactic, that he's got players like that he had that outlet when Lingard was here, that he's got that outlet with the likes of Kudus. I think we need another outlet, on the other side, as people alluded to. So we've got Kudus on one side and a different outlet on the other. That is his tactic. That's the irony. Scott, expectation Bowen will stay as a number 9 and we'll bring in a left winger. I agree with that. I would like Buchanan, who can do any of the front 3 positions, but is mainly right wing, stupid fast and can score. Good shout. Hamrick. So I've had a wee look at the like button and it seems it hasn't been touched as much as it should be tonight. You tell them. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please hit the like button and hit the bell notification to hear more of it in the future. Thank you, Hammerette. Much appreciated. You tell them. Jonathan, I would love to sign any one of the following: Fofana, Sancho, and Jonathan David. Forget Sancho. It cost us too much. Jonathan David, been talked about. Scott did for many a year about Sancho. About Jonathan David. Fofana's an interesting one because I thought we were interested in him in the summer and that didn't materialise. Early doors. Daniela, early doors. You say Man City's charges won't be dealt with until 2030. I don't think the rest of football will accept that. 2030. Wow. True culture. Which player would you give West Ham best signing for this season so far? Do you know what? For very different reasons, it's got to be, well, I think our three main signings have all been superb. James Ward-Prowse, Edson Alvarez, and Mohammedkudus. I think they've all been fantastic. But I did say before the summer transfer window started, if there's any one position we have to sign, it has to be a central defensive midfielder because I think it would transform our team. And Alvarez has come in and he's transformed our team. For many of the reasons why I explained before, because this is the job that Declan Rice should have been doing, but he wanted to do a different job at West Ham. Having a central defensive midfielder has made a massive difference to West Ham United in the way we play. Even when we play badly, like we did against Brighton, and we didn't have Kudus, etc., Alvarez was the pivotal player on that pitch. So I love Kudus. I think he's absolutely immense. You know, he's going to probably go and score as many goals as Bowen will score this season. But I've got, at this moment in time, I've got to say, the best signing so far for me has been Edson Alvarez, with Kudus right there, right behind him on his shirt tails. Let's scroll down. Jonathan, this player something has been going on for multiple seasons. Not happy with Hala, not happy with Benrahma, Kroll, Kehrer. Yeah, you got a good point there. I don't disagree with that. But maybe he did. Well, we certainly know he didn't rate Hala, and I think Hala was one of the best strikers we've had at the club for many a year. Kroll didn't really get a chance. Kehrer, Scamacca. Yeah, but Scamacca did play, to be quite honest with you, and so did Anderson in the early years that Moyes was there. What else we got? I'm down the bottom, so I can go up a little bit. Scott, love him or hate him, Moyes has given us our best first half of in eons. I would love more expansive football, but I also like wins. Maybe if Tim brings in a few more, maybe. Andrew, West Ham are 6. What's the problem? Not a problem for me, but I think what people are saying is it's not so much the position that we're in, it's more the style of football that people don't like. Let's go up a bit. I think, Mikey, I think Moyes should walk about with a Bounty Bar sponsor on his tracksuit because they're horrible. You hate him, don't you? You absolutely do. Early doors to Daniela. Their charges will be looked at this season, but people are still being interviewed. City can appeal any verdict so they can drag the arse out of it. And they will. They got good lawyers, haven't they? Expensive lawyers. Peter. George Earthy is a touch of John Moncur, but much better. Earthy is another decent youngster. Andrew, I'm not convinced by Mubama, but would like to see him given a fair crack. That's why I think he should go out on loan. Toughen up a little bit. Play some regular football and see what he can do. I would love to see Hammerett Emerson take the captaincy. Interesting shout. Johnny Mac. Evening all. Happy New Year to you. No problem, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, even at this late stage. What about Ivan Toney? He can join Paquetá in the scandal. I would actually love to have Ivan Toney, to be quite honest with you. Absolutely. Stephen, you missed my point still. The players love playing for Moyes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting the result. Sorry, mate. I did misunderstand that. Thank you for correcting me. Aaron, sorry. Let's get Aaron's comment up. Agree, Andrew. The more I see of Mubama, the less I'm convinced. He really does need a good run of games to show. That's why I think he really does need to go out on loan, to be quite honest with you. Caleb, my honest opinion is that all Hammers should root for Kudus in the AFCON, not for him to come back to the team so early. He loves it. We know he does. You know, and we're being selfish. We're being selfish. Of course, we want him to do well, but we also want him to come back and play for us. Scott, question. If we don't sign anyone, how far we will go in Europe and where we will finish in the league? I think we'll suffer, to be quite honest with you. I think we need even just one player, just to keep us ticking over, to be quite honest with you. We've now seen, like I mentioned earlier on in the show, some players who are squad players, have taken their opportunities. I think Johnson has. I think Ogbonna has. I can't remember who else I mentioned. Oh, Mavropanos has. And then other players have just not done it. So if we're reliant on Fornals and Benrahma and players like that to get us through, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. True culture. Was interested to see what you were going to say. Agreed, Kudus and Alvarez fighting for number one signings this season. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. They're both immense signings. Scott, one player can make a difference. Just look at the Lingard effect. Well, you know what? Irony. If we had Lingard back, and if he was at the level that he was at when he was first with us, that would be great. Right. Andrew, I think Marshall Mubama will be the likely outcome. Marshall over Mubama will be the likely outcome. Sean, just one player, just one. It's Timo time. You like him, don't you? I could be wrong on him, to be quite honest with you. Lord Patrick, will Areola get the nod in the later stages of the Europa League? Oh, Moyes is loyal, isn't he? So probably not. Probably not. Where was Victor's comment? Victor, good evening to you. I see contract talks have started again with Mubama. Yeah. Sorry, mate. If you missed the first part of the show, that's what the news I broke. That Mubama talks have started again. Mubama has kind of alluded to, he's kind of accepting that the grass isn't always greener, looking at other players that have left West Ham United, and he wants to make it a West Ham. So I'm really pleased for that. Peter, Lord asked a question. But yeah, I don't think it will be. I think Mubama. I think Areola will stay Premier League keeper, and he'll stay with Fabianski, to be quite honest with you. Peter, Man United fans are puzzled that Ten Hag didn't take Kudus and Alvarez to Man United. I'm puzzled, but I don't give a damn. Early doors. Still, please no Lingard. It wouldn't be like getting Nketiah. I don't like Nketiah either. That's it. Hammerette, two great keepers we have. One great keeper and one decent keeper. And the Frenchman is the great one. Right, that's it. 2 hours, 16 minutes for doing an impromptu show. You've kept me on my toes yet again. Thank you very much for doing so. It's always a pleasure. Back to Monday nights next week. West Ham Weekly back on Monday nights. The only reason why I did it, because I wasn't going to do a West Ham Weekly on New Year's Day. My balls would have been cut off and fed to me if I'd done that. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you all very much for getting involved, for commenting, etc. Really, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. I'll see you all very soon. I'm going to do a couple of special shows. One of them is going to be on Callum Marshall. And of course, when I get transfer stories, I'll be doing those as well. So look out for those too. Have a great rest of the week. And I'll see you all very soon. FA Cup this weekend. And then we've got a little break. And then, of course, we're back to Premier League football against Sheffield in a few weeks. See you all soon.